in the small, ordinary town of Little Winging. Nestled behind a row of perfectly pruned privet hedges, lay number 4, Privet Drive. Here, in this house of mundane routines and stringent order, lived a boy who was anything but ordinary. Harry Potter, a scrawny 10-year-old with jet black hair perpetually askew and bright green eyes, was unlike anyone else in the house, or so he often felt. On this particular day, Harry found himself on his knees, scrubbing the kitchen floor, while his Aunt Petunia, a woman with a delicate face and immense beauty, and a penchant for cleanliness, watched him like a hawk. His oversized, hand-me-down clothes, which had once belonged to his overweight cousin Dudley, hung loosely on his thin frame. As he scrubbed, his mind wandered. Harry couldn't help but question why fate seemed so unusually cruel to him. He had never known his parents, James and Lily Potter, who had died in a car crash, or so he had been told. And ever since he could remember, he had lived with his aunt, uncle, and cousin, who treated him more like a servant than a family member. Harry continued scrubbing, trying to block out the harsh world around him. But it wasn't long before his cousin, Dudley, a boy with a face like a pig in a wig, came thundering down the stairs. Dudley, who took pleasure in tormenting Harry, began to circle around him like a shark. With each pass, he'd nudge, bump, or smack Harry, laughing uproariously at each jolt of pain he caused. Uncle Vernon, a large man with a purple face and a bushy mustache, watched from his armchair in the corner of the room. His eyes gleamed with a mixture of disdain for Harry and delight in Dudley's antics. The disparity in treatment between Harry and his cousin was stark and painful. As Harry tried to focus on his task, a sudden sharp jab from Dudley sent a jolt of pain through his arm, causing the sponge to slip from his grasp. It skittered across the freshly cleaned floor, leaving a trail of soapy water. Aunt Petunia, who had been overseeing the entire ordeal, shrieked at the sight of the mess. "Dudley, enough," she scolded, though her tone was more affectionate than angry. "Harry, pick up that sponge this instant and finish your chores." As Harry reached for the sponge, nursing the sore spot where Dudley had hit him, he felt a surge of bitterness and despair. Why did his life have to be so miserable? He longed for a change, for something, anything, that could break the monotony of his dreary existence at the Dursleys. Fate, indeed, often seemed more cruel than Harry could have ever imagined. As he reached for the sponge, Uncle Vernon's chair creaked ominously, signaling his rising anger. He got up, his face reddening with each step he took towards Aunt Petunia. "Don't you dare shout at my son for this useless trash of a nephew you've brought into our home," he bellowed, his voice booming through the kitchen. Aunt Petunia, taken aback by her husband's sudden outburst, seemed to shrink back, her delicate face contorting with a mix of fear and distress. "Vernon, I was only," she started, but her voice trailed off into a whimper. The air in the room grew thick with tension, the kind that precedes a storm. Dudley, sensing the shift in atmosphere, stopped his taunting and retreated to a safe distance. Harry, meanwhile, watched the scene unfold with a growing sense of dread. He had seen his uncle angry before, but never like this. Vernon's eyes, now mere slits of rage, turned towards Harry. "This is your fault," he hissed. "Always causing trouble, always the problem." Without warning, he seized Harry by the collar of his oversized shirt, lifting him off the ground. Harry gasped for breath, his feet kicking at the air, as Vernon dragged him out of the kitchen. Aunt Petunia's cries echoed behind them, her sobs growing fainter as they moved further away. She ran to her room, the door slamming shut with a resounding thud. In the hallway, Vernon's grip tightened, his fingers digging into Harry's skin. "You've upset your aunt," Vernon growled, his face inches from Harry's. "You ungrateful little wretch." With a force born of pure fury, he flung Harry into the small cupboard under the stairs. His so-called bedroom. Harry's body hit the hard floor with a painful thud, the impact jarring his bones. The world spun around him, a whirl of shadows and muffled sounds. Pain radiated through his body, and his vision blurred. As he tried to push himself up, darkness crept into the edges of his consciousness, pulling him under. The last thing he heard before succumbing to the void was the sound of the cupboard door slamming shut, sealing him in darkness. Harry woke up several hours later, completely surrounded by darkness. His body ached from the rough treatment he'd received from his uncle. Confused and disoriented, he tried to find the gas lamp he used for light in these pitch-black confines. As he fumbled in the darkness, something extraordinary happened. A panel of light appeared in front of him, its soft glow illuminating the cramped space. The words technology system is initiated floated on the display, their presence both bewildering and fascinating. Harry blinked, thinking he must be dreaming or perhaps had hit his head harder than he realized. He could see the text clearly in the complete darkness of the cupboard, an impossibility under normal circumstances. Then, to his utter astonishment, a voice spoke directly into his mind. It was old, yet kind, with a distinct British accent that somehow felt familiar and comforting. "Hello, Master. I am Nigel, your assistant to use the technology system to its fullest." Harry's heart raced. He had never experienced anything like this. It was as if the voice was inside his head, yet it didn't feel invasive or threatening. Instead, there was an air of sophistication and wisdom about it. Who are you?" Harry whispered, his voice barely audible in the small space. "I am Nigel, an AI integrated into the technology system now activated within you. My purpose is to assist you in various capacities, be it through analyzing magical elements or providing emotional support. Think of me as your guide in this newfound journey," Nigel explained, his tone conveying a mix of formality and warmth. Harry's mind raced with questions. How did this system get inside him? What did it mean for his life at the Dursleys, or even more broadly, for his existence in a world that had so far shown him little kindness? He had always felt different, but this was beyond anything he could have imagined. Nigel seemed to sense Harry's confusion and apprehension. "Do not be alarmed, Master Harry. I am here to help you navigate through this. Together, we shall uncover the full extent of this system's capabilities." Harry, still struggling to grasp the reality of the situation, asked, "But why me? And what can this system do?" "The why is something we will discover together. As for its capabilities, they are extensive. From spell analysis to potion composition, even accessing a vast digital library and recording memories. This system is designed to enhance your abilities and provide you with knowledge and tools previously beyond reach." Spell. Harry stuttered, his voice quivering in the darkness. What do you mean by spell?" Nigel's voice, calm and composed, resonated in Harry's mind. "Master Harry, you are a wizard. The world you've known is but a fraction of reality. There exists a magical realm parallel to the one you've grown up in, teeming with enchantment and wonder." Harry's breath caught in his throat. A wizard? The idea seemed ludicrous, yet there was an undeniable truth in Nigel's words, a resonance that touched something deep within him. "But how?" Harry whispered, struggling to comprehend this revelation. "I mean, wizards, magic, they're just fairy tales, aren't they?" Nigel's chuckle was a soft ripple in the sea of Harry's confusion. "Ah, Master Harry, the world is far more mysterious and magical than you've been led to believe. Your parents were part of this magical world, skilled and respected wizards in their own right. It's in your blood, your heritage." The words struck Harry like a lightning bolt. His parents, wizards? It was a lot to take in, especially given the stark, magic-less life he'd led so far. Nigel continued, his tone patient and informative. "As for spells, they are but one aspect of the magical arts. With your inherent magical abilities and the assistance of the technology system, you'll be able to learn and cast spells, brew potions, and much more. The system will also provide real-time analysis of magical elements, something quite unprecedented." Harry felt a surge of excitement mixed with trepidation. Magic, it was a concept so foreign, yet it offered a glimpse of a life far removed from the misery of the Dursleys. "And you, Nigel, you're a part of this system?" Harry asked, his curiosity piqued. "Indeed, Master Harry. I am an AI assistant, programmed to guide and support you. My capabilities range from providing you with knowledge on both magical and non-magical subjects to offering emotional support and guidance. I am, in essence, your ally in this new chapter of your life." Harry's mind whirled with possibilities. An ally, something he had longed for in his loneliest moments. Nigel, despite being an AI, seemed to offer a sense of companionship and understanding that Harry had never experienced. "Then, Nigel," Harry said, a newfound determination in his voice, "let's start this journey together. Show me what I need to know. Teach me about this magical world and my place in it." "Very well, Master Harry," Nigel replied, his tone reflecting both the gravity and the excitement of the moment. "Our adventure begins now. And fear not, I shall be with you every step of the way, imparting wisdom and perhaps a bit of dry humor to lighten our path." As Harry listened, the darkness of the cupboard under the stairs seemed a little less oppressive, the future a bit brighter. The first light of dawn was barely filtering through the curtains when Harry felt a gentle, yet insistent nudge in his mind. It was Nigel, his ever-present, invisible companion, stirring him from sleep with his usual blend of dry humor and polite urgency. "Good morning, Harry," Nigel's voice echoed in his mind, the old British gentleman's tone impeccably polite, yet tinged with a hint of sarcasm. "As delightful as it is to watch you embrace the joys of slumber, I must remind you of the less pleasant realities awaiting your attention." Harry groaned, rubbing his eyes. "What time is it, Nigel?" "A perfectly reasonable hour for a young man to start his day, especially when certain familial obligations loom overhead," Nigel replied. His tone was light, but Harry could sense the undercurrent of seriousness. The Dursleys were not known for their leniency, especially when it came to Harry's chores. Harry sat up, stretching his arms. "All right, what's on the agenda for today?" "Your charming aunt and uncle expect breakfast prepared promptly. A task I suggest we undertake with haste, lest you find yourself facing their displeasure and an empty stomach." Harry sighed and swung his legs off the bed. Nigel was right. The last thing he wanted was to start the day with Uncle Vernon's bellowing or Aunt Petunia's scathing remarks. As he made his way to the kitchen, Nigel continued, "While you engage in the culinary arts, I've taken the liberty of devising a plan for today. It involves a bit of research in Diagon Alley and a visit to a certain shop that might prove useful for our future endeavors." Harry's interest was piqued. "What shop?" "Ah, the curiosity of youth. Worry not, all will be revealed in due time. For now, let's focus on not burning the bacon, shall we?" As Harry busied himself with the morning's cooking, he couldn't help but marvel at the efficiency that Nigel's guidance brought to even the most mundane tasks. The technology system, TS, that Nigel was a part of seemed almost magical in its own right, despite its technological origins. "Master Harry, if you place the bacon on the skillet now, it will reach optimal crispness by the time the eggs are done," Nigel advised, his voice calm and measured in Harry's mind. "And do remember to lower the heat slightly. We wouldn't want to give your aunt any more reasons to critique your culinary skills." Harry adjusted the stove as instructed, feeling a bit like he was part of a well-oiled machine. He had to admit, having Nigel's assistance made these chores less tedious, almost enjoyable in a strange way. "And while you're at it, a dash of salt on the eggs, just a dash," Nigel continued. "We aim for flavor, not a heart attack." Harry chuckled, shaking his head. "You know, for an AI, you've got quite the sense of humor, Nigel." "Ah, humor is a necessary tool in the arsenal of any gentleman, Master Harry, even a digital one," Nigel replied, his tone laced with his characteristic dry wit. "It makes the unbearable bearable, and the mundane slightly less so." The breakfast was soon ready, cooked to perfection under Nigel's meticulous guidance. As Harry served the plates, Nigel remarked, "A job well done, Master Harry." Harry sat slumped at the table, still feeling the weight of his situation. Despite the successful completion of his morning tasks, "You told me to go out to the library, but I'm not allowed to leave the house," he said, his voice tinged with frustration. Nigel's voice returned, tinged with its usual mix of dry wit and sharp intelligence. "That is where your Aunt Petunia comes in, Master Harry. There are ways to navigate around such restrictions, you see." Harry raised an eyebrow. "How's that?" "She's not exactly my biggest fan." "Ah, but therein lies the opportunity," Nigel explained. "You see, your aunt doesn't truly hate you, Harry. Her feelings are more complex, rooted in a blend of resentment and perhaps a touch of envy. Understanding her perspective might be the key to gaining a bit more freedom." Harry frowned, struggling to see how this could be true. "Envy? Aunt Petunia?" "Yes, indeed. Your magical abilities, something she lacks, might stir feelings of envy in her," Nigel said. "Consider using this knowledge to your advantage. Observe her, understand her, and you might find ways to influence her decisions." "But how do I even start with something like that?" Harry asked, feeling out of his depth. "Observation, Master Harry, is an art," Nigel began. "Notice her expressions, her tone, the words she chooses. Look for patterns in her behavior, moments when she is more amenable. And remember, your demeanor can greatly affect her responses. Approach her with a blend of respect and confidence." Harry mulled over Nigel's words. So, you're suggesting I play nice with her? Be polite. Help out more? Exactly, Nigel. Confirmed. And when the moment is right, express a genuine interest in something outside the house. The library, for example. Frame it as an educational pursuit, something she might find hard to argue against. It sounds like a long shot, Harry said skeptically. With a dash of charm and a sprinkle of sincerity, you'd be surprised at what can be achieved, Nigel replied, his tone light, yet encouraging. And remember, I'm here to guide you through it. Together, we'll navigate this social labyrinth. Harry nodded, feeling a bit more hopeful. Nigel's advice was unconventional, but it offered a glimmer of a plan. And if there was anything Harry had learned since Nigel's arrival, it was that the AI's suggestions, however strange, often led to surprising results. Nigel then reminded him, "It is time for waking up your family, Master Harry. If they are late for their day, you will be to blame." Harry sighed, pushing away from the breakfast table. "Right, the last thing I need is Uncle Vernon blaming me for his being late to work. As always, a keen observation, Master Harry," Nigel quipped. "Your uncle's punctuality is a matter of great importance, rivaled only by his love for a quiet breakfast, which, thanks to your exemplary culinary skills, is now assured." Harry couldn't help but smile at Nigel's remark as he headed upstairs to rouse the Dursleys. He knocked gently on the door of Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia's room. "Uncle Vernon, Aunt Petunia, time to get up." There was a grumble from within, followed by the sound of shuffling. Harry knew better than to enter without permission and waited patiently outside. "Remember, Harry, your charm offensive begins now," Nigel advised. "Politeness and a smile, even if it's just a facade, can work wonders." Harry nodded to himself, plastering a polite smile on his face as Uncle Vernon opened the door, his expression sour as usual. "Breakfast is ready, Uncle Vernon," Harry said, maintaining his composure. Vernon grunted a response and shuffled past Harry, his eyes barely registering the boy. As Harry moved to wake Dudley, Nigel continued, "Now, onto your cousin. A different approach might be required here." Harry asked. "Different?" Nigel said. "Of course. Every person is different. And your approach must be tailored accordingly. Your Aunt Petunia's emotions are tinged with resentment, envy, and anger. Dudley, on the other hand, has been shaped by his upbringing. It's not entirely his fault, but that doesn't justify his actions. Given his youth, he's more susceptible to influence. Follow my instructions, and within a month, he might be hanging on your every word." Harry raised an eyebrow. "Really, Dudley? Listening to me? With the right strategy, even the most unlikely alliances can be forged," Nigel replied, his voice rich with unspoken amusement. "In Dudley's case, the key lies in finding common ground, something that interests him yet doesn't threaten his sense of superiority." Harry pondered this as he approached Dudley's room. He knocked and waited for a response. "Time to get up, Dudley," he called out, his tone deliberately neutral. Dudley's response was a groan, followed by a muffled, "Go away, Harry. Breakfast is ready," Harry continued, unfazed. "I made sure to cook extra bacon." There was a moment of silence. Then the sound of movement from inside the room. Dudley soon emerged, his expression less hostile than usual at the prospect of his favorite breakfast. "As you interact with Dudley, observe his reactions," Nigel advised. "Find what excites him, what he's passionate about. Use that knowledge to build a report." Harry nodded to himself. "So, Dudley, got any plans today?" he asked, attempting to sound casually interested as they walked downstairs. Dudley shrugged. "Dunno, might hang out with peers." "Why?" "Just asking," Harry said, keeping his tone light. "Thought you might be interested in that new video game that's coming out soon. Heard it's supposed to be really good." Dudley's eyes lit up briefly at the mention of the game, but he quickly masked his interest. "Yeah, maybe. There you go, Harry," Nigel whispered in his mind. "A small crack in the wall. Keep at it, and you'll find your way through." As they sat at the table, Harry served and went back to the kitchen for his own breakfast. He wasn't allowed to sit at the table with the rest, but it didn't mean he couldn't work on new tactics Nigel had taught him. He checked with the AI. "Are you saying you can help me with video games, so I'll become an expert in a second? Then, you want me to act like I can't play at all but give Dudley theoretical knowledge to make him better?" Nigel, sounding slightly offended, responded, "Such a simple game is not worthy of my attention, Master Harry. This is the technology system, after all. We are capable of far more sophisticated endeavors. Harry couldn't help but chuckle. Right, because helping me win at video games is beneath us. Precisely, Master Harry. Nigel replied with his usual dry wit. However, there is merit in using your newfound knowledge as a tool for building rapport with your cousin. It's not about the game itself, but the interaction it facilitates. Harry mulled this over as he quietly ate his breakfast in the kitchen. So, I learn about the game, share some tips with Dudley, and we bond over it. Is that the plan? In essence. Yes, Nigel confirmed. It's about finding a common interest, a platform for positive interaction. It's not just about Dudley, it's about changing the dynamics of your relationship with the Dursleys. Harry nodded thoughtfully. I guess it's worth a try. But I'm not exactly a video game expert. You needn't be, Master Harry, Nigel reassured him. A little research, a few well-placed comments, and you'll have enough to pique Dudley's interest. It's not about being an expert, it's about being a useful and interesting presence in his life. Harry finished his breakfast and began cleaning up. All right, Nigel, I'll give it a shot. What's the worst that could happen? A most prudent approach, Master Harry, Nigel said approvingly. And now, regarding our Diagon Alley excursion. Once you've navigated the morning's familial challenges, we should plan our visit. There's much to prepare and consider. Right, the mysterious shop you mentioned, Harry said. His curiosity reignited. What are we looking for there? Ah, patience, Master Harry, Nigel chided gently. All in good time. For now, let's focus on the task at hand. Winning over the Dursleys is no small feat, but I have every confidence in your ability to rise to the challenge. After Dudley and Vernon left, first for school, second for work, Harry started to clean the table. Vernon often took sick paper for Harry, at least in the legal amount he could, so he could stay back, lest he spread his freakness and embarrass them, and also to do the chores. As Harry was working on the table, Nigel reminded him, look at your aunt. Due to the fight last night, she is upset. It is a good entrance point. For now, she will not even listen to you, but if you brew her tea, light a scent, and massage her, she will at least listen to you. Then, you can plant seeds of doubt about Vernon into her mind. In exchange, elevate your own worth, and Harry paused, considering Nigel's words. And that sounds manipulative, and he said hesitantly. And Master Harry, in the grand tapestry of human interaction, every thread is a form of influence, and Nigel replied, his tone philosophical. And you're simply choosing a more benign and constructive form. Besides, it's high time your aunt saw you in a different light, and taking a deep breath, Harry began to brew a pot of tea. He carefully selected Aunt Petunia's favorite blend, hoping the familiar aroma would comfort her. He then found a scented candle in the living room and lit it, its soft fragrance spreading through the kitchen. As the tea steeped, Harry approached his aunt, who was sitting at the table, her posture stiff, her face drawn. And Aunt Petunia, I've made you some tea, and he said gently, setting the cup in front of her. Petunia looked up, surprised. And why are you doing this, Harry, and she asked, her voice a mix of suspicion and curiosity. And just thought you might like some. And Harry replied, trying to sound nonchalant. And I found this candle. Thought it might, well, lighten the mood, and Petunia's expression softened ever so slightly, a hint of gratitude flickering in her eyes. She took a sip of the tea and sighed. And thank you, Harry, and seizing the moment, Harry offered, and I can give you a shoulder massage if you'd like. You seem tense. And Petunia hesitated, then nodded. And all right, but just for a bit, and as Harry gently massaged her shoulders, Nigel's voice echoed in his mind. And now, Master Harry, while tending to her, speak in a soft, reassuring tone. Mention how you understand that Uncle Vernon can be overwhelming at times. But be subtle, don't push too hard, and Harry followed Nigel's advice, making small talk about the household and delicately hinting at Vernon's overbearing nature. He could feel Aunt Petunia relaxing under his touch, the tension easing from her body. And you're quite good at this, Harry, and Petunia murmured, a note of genuine appreciation in her voice. And quat. Thank you, Aunt Petunia, and quat. Harry replied, a hint of a smile on his lips. And quat. I just want to help out, make things easier for you, and quat. As he continued, Nigel chimed in, and quat. Excellent, Master Harry. You're planting the seeds of a more positive relationship. Remember, consistency and patience are key, and quat. Eventually, Petunia pulled away, looking somewhat refreshed. And quat. That was nice, Harry, thank you, and quat, she said, a rare warmth in her voice. Harry nodded, pleased with the progress. And quat. You're welcome, Aunt Petunia. If you ever need anything, just let me know. And quat. As he finished cleaning up, Nigel praised him. And quat. Well done, Master Harry. You've navigated that interaction with a deft touch. Remember, small steps lead to great distances. And quat. Nigel then said, and quat. It is time to step out. Go and ask your aunt if you can go for shopping, as you want to cook something special for them tonight. And quat. He added with a hint of intrigue. And quat. I will give you your first mission. And quat. As he said that, a screen appeared in front of Harry, reminiscent of the video games Dudley often played. It displayed a quest, neatly formatted and outlined. Mission. Successfully persuade Aunt Petunia to allow you to go shopping. Objective. Utilize your newfound understanding of Aunt Petunia's personality and emotions to convince her to grant you permission to leave the house for shopping. Rewards. Earn 10 points redeemable in the technology system shop. Strategy tips from Nigel. Use polite persuasion, subtle flattery, and appeal to her sense of household pride. Harry analyzed the mission, taking a moment to gather his thoughts and plan his approach. Nigel's voice chimed in, and quat. Remember, Master Harry, it's all about presentation and timing. Your words should be chosen carefully, like a chess master plotting his next move, and quat. Seeing the new terms on the screen, Harry turned to Nigel with a barrage of questions, his curiosity piqued by the unfamiliar concepts. Nigel, ever the embodiment of patience and wit, explained each aspect with his usual blend of dry humor and intelligence. And quat. Missions, Master Harry, are tasks or challenges designed to test your abilities and to help you grow. They are generated based on your current situation and needs, and quat. Nigel elucidated, his tone reflecting a teacher's patience mixed with a hint of amusement. And quat. Completing these missions will earn you points, a form of currency within the technology system. And quat. Harry furrowed his brow. And quat. And these points, what do they do? And quat. Nigel's response was prompt. And quat. Points can be redeemed in the technology system shop for various items and upgrades. This could include spell blueprints, potion recipes, or even modules to enhance the TS itself. It's a reward system designed to incentivize your growth and achievements. And quat. Harry nodded, absorbing this information. And quat. So, the more I learn and accomplish, the more points I earn to improve the system. And this shop, can I access it any time? And quat. And quat. Indeed, Master Harry. The shop is available at your convenience, offering a range of items to aid you in your magical and non-magical endeavors. And quat. Nigel replied. And quat. As for other ways to earn points, they can be acquired through knowledge acquisition, such as learning new spells or potions, victories in magical challenges, and even through good deeds. Ethical actions are highly valued by the system. And quat. Armed with this new understanding, he approached Aunt Petunia, who was now sitting quietly, her mood visibly softened by the tea and massage. And quat. Aunt Petunia, and quat. Harry began, his voice steady but respectful. And quat. I was thinking of cooking something special for dinner tonight, but I need a few things from the store. Would it be all right if I went out to get them? And quat. Petunia looked at him, her expression wavering between suspicion and consideration. And quat. Special dinner. What are you planning to cook? And quat. Harry glanced towards the cupboard, where he had left a cookbook open. And quat. I found a recipe for shepherd's pie in one of your cookbooks. It looked really good, and I thought it might be a nice change. And quat. Petunia's eyes softened slightly at the mention of the recipe. And quat. Shepherd's pie. Huh? That's one of Vernon's favorites. And quat. Nigel's voice whispered in Harry's mind. And quat. Remind her gently that a good meal might lighten the mood of the household, especially after a stressful night. And quat. Taking the cue, Harry added, and quote, I thought it might cheer everyone up. Especially after, well, you know, last night, and quote. Petunia hesitated, then sighed. And quote. All right, Harry, but be quick about it, and don't dilly-dally, and quote. Harry nodded eagerly. And quote. Thank you, Aunt Petunia. I'll be back as soon as I can, and quote. Harry approached the cookbook to jot down the ingredients for the shepherd's pie when Nigel interjected with his usual blend of wit and intelligence. And quote, Master Harry, I believe you're overlooking a rather nifty feature of your technology system, the data storage and memory bank. You need not rely on mere pen and paper like a muggle in the Dark Ages, and quote. Harry paused, a look of realization crossing his face. And quote. Right, I forgot about that. So, I can just remember this, and quote. Nigel's voice carried a hint of playful sarcasm. And quote. Indeed, Master Harry, the wonders of modern technology at your disposal, and you opt for the quill and parchment approach. But fear not, I'm here to steer you towards the 21st century, and quote. Harry focused on the recipe, and to his amazement, the details imprinted themselves in his mind, as clear and vivid as if he were viewing them on a screen. And quote. Wow, this is incredible, and quote. Nigel's response was laced with dry humor. And quote. Ah, the delight of discovery. Yes, every event, every detail, stored with the precision of a well-oiled library. Makes one wonder how you ever managed without it, and quote. Harry tested this newfound ability, recalling a distant memory. It played back in his mind with astonishing clarity, as if he were reliving it. And quote. This is like watching a video. Even things I barely remember are clear now. And quote. And quote. Quite so, Master Harry, and quote. Nigel remarked. And quote. The memory bank is not just a storehouse, it's a time machine of sorts, allowing you to revisit the past with the clarity of the present. A handy tool, especially for those with a penchant for nostalgia or, in your case, learning from past experiences, and quote. Harry was on a tight schedule, so he ran instead of walking. His mind focused on the new quest Nigel had presented to him. The quest screen appeared before him. Its text crisp and clear. Mission. Book scanning sprint. Objective. Scan 100 books about crafting. At the bookstore within the allotted time. Don't be late returning home. Rewards. 40 points for scanning 100 books, plus an additional 3 points for every 10 books scanned thereafter. Time limit. Must complete before returning home for chores. Harry's breath quickened with the prospect of the challenge. And quote. 100 books, Nigel? That's a lot, especially with the time constraint, and quote. Nigel's voice was both encouraging and laced with his typical dry humor. And quote. Indeed, Master Harry, but I have every confidence in your abilities. Besides, consider it in excellent exercise in time management and speed reading, and quote. Arriving at the supermarket, Harry was relieved to find a bookstore section. He headed straight for the crafting aisle, his mind racing. Pulling out book after book, he scanned them quickly, the technology system efficiently storing every detail. Nigel's voice chimed in, and quote. Remember, speed is of the essence, but accuracy is paramount. No skimming, Master Harry. Every page, every word, and quote. Harry worked feverishly, his eyes darting across the pages. And quote. Got it, Nigel. Focusing, and quote. As he progressed, the counter on the quest screen ticked up steadily. 20 books, 40, 60. Harry's pace was unrelenting. He could feel the weight of the time ticking away, pushing him to move faster. And quote, Master Harry, a reminder, haste is productive only when coupled with efficiency, and quote, Nigel advised, his tone a mix of sternness and support. And quote, you're doing splendidly, but do keep an eye on the clock. And quote. Harry nodded to himself, sweat beading on his forehead. He had never imagined a trip to the supermarket could turn into such an intense endeavor. Finally, as he scanned the 100th book, a notification popped up on the quest screen, accompanied by the satisfying sound of points being added to his account. And quote, quest completed. Book scanning sprint, 100 books scanned, 40 points earned, and quote. Breathing heavily, Harry glanced at his watch. Time was running out. He had to hurry back. As he dashed towards the checkout, Nigel's voice was a blend of praise and urgency. And quote, exemplary work, Master Harry. But now, the Second part of your quest, returning home on time. The clock is ticking, and quat. Harry paid for the shepherd's pie ingredients and hurried out of the store, his mind already on the next task at hand. The technology system's capabilities continued to amaze him, and with Nigel's guidance, he felt like he was unlocking a part of himself he never knew existed. And quat, quickly now, master. Harry, and quat, Nigel urged. And quat, no time for dawdling. The Dursleys await, and we wouldn't want to add fuel to their already fiery disposition towards you, and quat. Harry increased his pace, his legs pumping as he ran through the streets of Little Winging, the weight of the groceries in his arms a constant reminder of the urgency of his mission. The quest had been a success, but there was still much to do. He arrived back at the Dursleys just as the clock was threatening to make him late. Stepping through the door, Harry was met with Aunt Petunia's almost scowl, her expression poised on the edge of annoyance. If he had been delayed even by a minute more, Harry knew he would have been subjected to a tirade. "I'm sorry, Aunt Petunia," he said quickly, moving towards the kitchen. There was a queue at the checkout. Petunia simply nodded, her face remaining neutral. Harry couldn't help but let a small smile escape. He had completed the quest successfully, earning those precious points. Now, his next challenge loomed, cooking the perfect shepherd's pie. If he didn't impress his aunt, it might be a long time before he got another chance to leave the house. As he began preparing the ingredients, Nigel's voice floated into his consciousness. "Well done on your successful book heist, Master Harry. Now, onto the culinary arts. Remember, the way to a Dursley's heart is through their stomach, albeit a route fraught with peril given their unique palates." Harry chuckled, appreciating Nigel's dry sense of humor, even as he focused on chopping onions with precision. "I'll do my best, Nigel. Any tips on making this shepherd's pie special?" "Ah, the secret lies in the seasoning, Master Harry. A dash of this, a pinch of that, the culinary equivalent of a well-cast spell," Nigel advised, his tone a blend of mock solemnity and genuine guidance. "And do keep an eye on the cooking time. We aim for perfection, not charcoal." Harry carefully mixed the ingredients, following Nigel's instructions to the letter. As the aroma of the cooking pie began to fill the kitchen, he felt a sense of pride. This was more than just a meal, it was a step towards something greater, a small victory in the grand scheme of his life at the Dursleys. "Remember, Harry, presentation is key," Nigel reminded him as the pie was nearing completion. "Serve it with a flourish, and perhaps, just perhaps, your aunt might view you in a slightly different light." As the pie came out of the oven, perfectly golden and bubbling, Harry couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. He plated the dish with care, adding a garnish for good measure. While Harry was meticulously arranging the shepherd's pie on the table, the doorbell rang. Placing the dish down, he walked over and opened the door, revealing Uncle Vernon and Dudley standing there. Despite Vernon's usual scowl, Harry greeted them with an unwavering smile. As the scent of the pie wafted out, Vernon's expression shifted from irritation to one of gluttonous delight, closely mirrored by Dudley. "Shepherd's pie, my favorite," Vernon remarked, his voice betraying a hint of surprise and pleasure. Petunia, joining them at the door to greet her family, looked on inquisitively. Harry, seizing the moment as per Nigel's advice, said with a hint of pride, "Aunt Petunia made it. She's been working hard on it all afternoon." Petunia, taken aback, glanced at Harry, her eyes widening slightly in shock. Harry offered her a discreet wink, a silent acknowledgement of their shared secret. This was part of Nigel's strategy, attributing the credit to Petunia was not only a diplomatic move but also a subtle way to shift the household dynamics. Uncle Vernon, seemingly pleased, grunted his approval and made his way to the table, Dudley eagerly trailing behind him. As they settled in, Nigel's voice echoed in Harry's mind, laced with his usual dry humor. "Master Harry, your diplomatic skills are improving. A small fib, but for a noble cause. Remember, in the grand game of familial politics, perception is often more powerful than reality." Harry suppressed a smile at Nigel's words, taking a quiet satisfaction in the small victory. He watched as Uncle Vernon and Dudley dug into the pie with gusto, their earlier irritations forgotten in the face of a well-cooked meal. This was where the plan would truly unfold. Nigel's strategy was multifaceted and cleverly orchestrated. First, Harry had earned points by preparing a special meal for the family, and then, by attributing the success to Aunt Petunia. he had gained further favor. The third phase of the plan, however, was the most cunning. It aimed to create a subtle rift between Petunia and Vernon. As Vernon took a bite of the shepherd's pie, his face contorted into an expression of disgust. He spat out the food, much to the shock of everyone at the table. "What is this? It's revolting," he exclaimed, glaring at the dish. Petunia, utterly bewildered, asked with concern, "What's wrong, dear? Did I not cook it to your liking?" Vernon's scowl deepened as he pushed the plate away. "This is terrible, Petunia. How could you serve something like this?" The confusion on Petunia's face was genuine. She had tasted the pie herself, and even though it pained her to admit it, Harry's culinary skills were nothing short of extraordinary. The dish was delicious, almost overwhelmingly so. Dudley, sitting beside his father, seemed unaffected by Vernon's outburst, wolfing down the pie with enthusiastic fervor. Nigel's voice, imbued with its characteristic dry wit, chimed in Harry's mind. "Ah, Master Harry," observed the unfolding drama. A culinary critique, subjective to the last bite. Harry, maintaining a neutral expression, watched as Petunia hesitantly reached for Vernon's plate to taste the dish herself. As she suspected, it was as delightful as her own serving. This left her with only one conclusion. Vernon's reaction was not about the food at all. He was, for some unfathomable reason, intent on insulting her cooking. Petunia's face hardened as she realized the implications. "Vernon, there's nothing wrong with this pie. You're being utterly unreasonable." Vernon's response was a grumble, his face still twisted in displeasure. "It's your cooking, Petunia, not my taste, clearly." Nigel's voice resonated in Harry's mind again. "Master Harry, the seed of discord has been sown, albeit in a rather unexpected garden. The dynamics of the Dursley household are shifting, ever so subtly." How something so delicious could be revolting for Vernon while not for Petunia was a matter of simple chemistry. In the magical world, potion making is an art form, but even in the mundane realm, chemistry holds its own magic. Harry had applied this principle in a rather ingenious way. "You see, Master Harry, the art of potion making and the subtleties of chemistry are not so different," Nigel commented in his usual witty tone. A dash of pineapple juice in Vernon's orange juice might seem innocuous, but combine that with the addition of blue cheese to the shepherd's pie, and voila! A culinary catastrophe for one, a delightful feast for others. The trick was in the reaction between the pineapple juice and the blue cheese. Separately, they were harmless, even pleasant. But, combined in Vernon's palate, they created an intensely unpleasant flavor. This meant that while Petunia, suspecting Harry might have tampered with the food, tasted nothing amiss from Vernon's plate, Vernon experienced a completely different, revolting taste. The subtlety of it, Master Harry, Nigel noted, is that Petunia's suspicion led her to believe the pie was tampered with. Yet, upon tasting it, she found nothing wrong. The only logical conclusion for her, then, is that Vernon's outburst was a deliberate insult to her cooking. This simple act of culinary sabotage was more than just a prank. It was a strategic move in the complex chess game of household dynamics. It subtly shifted the balance of power, planting the seeds of doubt and discord in a relationship already strained by years of unspoken tensions and resentments. As you can see, Master Harry, even the simplest of actions can have profound effects on the human psyche, Nigel mused, his voice a mixture of amusement and approval. And in this case, it has served to highlight the sometimes irrational nature of adult behavior, particularly that of your dear Uncle Vernon. Harry couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment mixed with a twinge of guilt. It was one thing to stand up to the Dursleys' unfair treatment, but another to actively manipulate the dynamics within their home. Yet, Nigel's guidance and the necessity of survival in the Dursley household had driven him to adopt such tactics. Remember, Master Harry, in the battle against adversity, sometimes the most effective weapons are those of wit and cunning, Nigel advised, his tone reassuring yet laced with a hint of his characteristic dry sarcasm. And in your case, a little culinary chemistry has proven most effective. Seeing Dudley hastily grabbing his father's plate and rushing towards his room, Harry quickly decided to retreat to the relative safety of his cupboard. The tension between Petunia and Vernon was palpable, and he had no desire to be caught in the midst of their impending argument. As he sat on his small bed, the muffled sounds of their heated dispute reached his ears. Petunia's voice, usually restrained, was now laced with frustration and anger. And another thing, Vernon, have you seen the size of your belly lately? It's no wonder you found the pie revolting. You can hardly discern taste over your own gluttony. Vernon's retort was a mix of indignation and defensiveness. My size has nothing to do with it, Petunia. It's your cooking that's the problem, not my belly. The argument escalated, with Petunia launching into a tirade about Vernon's various shortcomings. And while we're on the subject, your so-called manly prowess leaves much to be desired. You puff and pant like an overworked steam engine. And as for your equipment, it's hardly anything to boast about. Harry cringed, feeling a mix of embarrassment and sympathy. He knew these were private matters, ones he shouldn't be privy to. Yet, he couldn't help but listen, the words painting a vivid and uncomfortable picture in his mind. As the argument continued, Nigel's voice intruded into his thoughts, its usual dry wit undiminished by the awkwardness of the situation. Ah, Master Harry, the joys of matrimonial discord. A dance as old as time, and yet, each performance is uniquely cringe-worthy. Harry couldn't help but chuckle at Nigel's comment, despite the seriousness of the situation. This is pretty bad, Nigel. Should I do something? Nigel's response was a blend of pragmatism and sarcasm. Intervening in marital disputes is a perilous venture, Master Harry, especially when the combatants are as spirited as the Dursleys. Best to stay out of the firing line, I'd say. Harry nodded, agreeing with Nigel's assessment. The cupboard, cramped and dark as it was, felt like a sanctuary compared to the storm raging outside. As for your uncle's, performance issues, Nigel continued, it seems your culinary experiment has unearthed more than just a distaste for shepherd's pie. The human psyche is a labyrinth, Master Harry, full of unexpected twists and turns. Harry sighed, feeling a bit guilty for the unintended consequences of his actions. I didn't mean for it to go this far, Nigel. Ah. But such is the nature of actions and reactions, Master Harry, Nigel replied, his tone philosophical yet tinged with amusement. One never quite knows where a single step might lead, especially in the delicate dance of family dynamics. As the voices outside grew louder, Harry tried to block them out, focusing instead on Nigel's guidance and the lessons he could learn from this situation. Remember, Master Harry, every experience, however unpleasant, is a lesson in the grand curriculum of life, Nigel advised, his voice a steady presence in the chaos. And you, my young protégé, are proving to be an exceptionally quick learner. Harry couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude for Nigel's presence. His guidance, though often delivered with a healthy dose of sarcasm, was invaluable in navigating the complexities of his young life. With a sigh, Harry leaned back against the wall of his cupboard, bracing himself for the challenges yet to come. As the fight outside began to wane, Harry's attention shifted to the technology system's capabilities. A translucent blue screen materialized in front of him, shimmering with an almost ethereal quality. He was eager to explore the shop, curious about what his recently earned 50 points could acquire. Ah, the virtual marketplace, a cornucopia of digital delights, Nigel's voice echoed in Harry's mind, infused with his characteristic wit. Let's peruse the offerings, shall we? Harry navigated through the menu, impressed by the range of items available. The shop was organized into various categories: spell blueprints, potion recipes, magical cores, and more. Each item was listed with a detailed description and the required points for purchase. Consider your choices wisely, Master Harry, Nigel advised, his tone playful yet instructive. These items are not mere trinkets, but tools to aid in your magical education. Harry's eyes were drawn to the section labeled Spell Blueprints. It contained tutorials for basic spells, each meticulously detailed and illustrated. Harry then pondered aloud. You mentioned that wizards use wands, Nigel. So, is there any point in acquiring spells if I don't have one? He was still navigating the nuances of this new magical world. Nigel, with his ever-present wit, replied, Ah, Master Harry, a wand is indeed a wizard's traditional tool, but consider this: knowledge is power, regardless of the medium. Besides, there are other avenues of magic to explore. Curious, Harry delved into the Talents tab on the Technology System interface. He discovered various magical disciplines, each with different tiers of mastery. Transfiguration, as Nigel explained, was the art of changing the form or appearance of an object or being. It was divided into 5 tiers: low, intermediate, high, excellent, and godly. Even the low tier was priced steeply at 1,000 points. As Harry scrolled through the list, his eyes widened at the sight of wandless magic, low tier priced at a staggering 20,000 points. He felt a mix of excitement and dismay. Wandless magic seemed like an incredible field to explore, yet the cost was far beyond his current means. Nigel, observing Harry's reactions, chimed in with a blend of encouragement and sarcasm. "Don't be too disheartened, Master Harry. Let's check your current status first. You might be surprised at what you find. Name, Harry Potter. Age, 10. Wizardry level, beginner. Points, 50. Wizardry skills, spellcasting, basic, no knowledge of simple spells and charms, potion brewing, novice, limited understanding of basic potion ingredients. Transfiguration, novice, limited understanding, no practical experience. Charms, basic, unfamiliar with fundamental enchantments, care of magical creatures, basic, limited knowledge, no hands-on experience. Physical skills, broom riding, excellent, incredible talent, little experience. Dueling, basic, fundamental understanding of dueling concepts, wizarding arts, divination, basic. General talent, no practical experience. Arithmancy, novice, understanding of basic concepts. Runes, basic, limited information, magical attributes, magical resistance, low, basic resistance to common spells, legilimency, occlumency, basic, general awareness, no practical skills. Parseltongue, innate, ability to communicate with snakes, mystical talents, seer abilities, none. No known seer abilities, animagus transformation, none. No ability to transform into an animal. Muggle skills, Muggle studies, excellent, great understanding of the non-magical world, stealth and disguise, basic understanding of stealth techniques, house-specific traits, Gryffindor. Courage, high, innate bravery and determination. Ravenclaw wisdom, moderate, inclination towards learning and knowledge, Slytherin ambition, low, minimal ambition for power or status, Hufflepuff. Loyalty, high, strong sense of loyalty and fairness. Artifact expertise, Wandlaw, basic, limited. Knowledge, no practical experience. Magical item identification, limited, cannot identify common magical objects. Alchemical skills, alchemy, none. No knowledge of alchemy. Dark arts defense. Defense against the dark arts, basic, understanding of fundamental defensive spells, special. Talents, wandless magic, excellent, innate talent for performing magic without a wand. In the dim light of the cupboard under the stairs, Harry Potter, now more bewildered than ever, gazed at the game-like status screen that Nigel, his newly discovered AI companion, had conjured. The display, comprehensive and intriguing, provided an overview of Harry's current capabilities and talents in the magical world. "Master Harry, let's analyze your status, shall we?" Nigel's voice, laced with his characteristic wit, echoed in Harry's mind. The screen read, Name, Harry Potter. Age, 10. Wizardry level, beginner. Points, 50. Wizardry skills, spellcasting, basic, no knowledge of simple spells and charms, potion brewing, novice, limited understanding of basic potion ingredients, transfiguration, novice, limited understanding, no practical experience. Charms, basic, unfamiliar with fundamental enchantments, care of magical creatures, basic, limited. Knowledge, no hands-on experience. Physical skills, broom riding, excellent, incredible talent. Little experience. Dueling, basic, fundamental understanding of dueling concepts, wizarding. Arts, divination, basic, general talent, no practical experience. Arithmancy, novice. Understanding of basic concepts, runes, basic, limited information, magical attributes, magical. Resistance, low, basic resistance to common spells, legilimency, occlumency, basic, general. Awareness, no practical skills. Parseltongue, innate, ability to communicate with snakes. Mystical talents, seer abilities, none. No known seer abilities. Animagus transformation, none. No ability to transform into an animal. Muggle skills, Muggle studies, excellent, great. Understanding of the non-magical world, stealth and disguise, basic understanding of stealth techniques, house-specific traits, Gryffindor. Courage, high, innate bravery and determination. Ravenclaw wisdom, moderate, inclination towards learning and knowledge, Slytherin. Ambition, low, minimal ambition for power or status, Hufflepuff loyalty, high, strong sense of loyalty and fairness, artifact expertise, wand lore, basic, limited knowledge, no practical experience, magical item identification, limited, cannot identify common magical objects. Alchemical skills, alchemy, none, no knowledge of alchemy, dark arts defense, defense against the dark arts, basic, understanding of fundamental defensive spells, special talents, wandless. Magic, excellent, innate talent for performing magic without a wand. Harry, slightly perplexed, questioned, Nigel, why is dueling listed under physical skills? And what exactly does my excellent skill in wandless magic entail? Nigel, in his unflappable manner, replied, Master Harry, dueling is as much about physical agility and reflexes as it is about spellcasting. As for your talent in wandless magic, it's quite rare, suggesting an inherent ability to channel magic without the conventional conduit of a wand. Most intriguing, indeed. Harry nodded, his mind racing with the possibilities this newfound knowledge brought. I can't believe I have such abilities. It's a bit overwhelming. Nigel's voice carried a note of reassurance. Fear not, Master Harry. With my guidance and your innate abilities, we shall navigate this magical journey with aplomb. Remember, every great wizard starts as a beginner. Your journey is just beginning, and what a thrilling journey it will be. As Harry absorbed this information, his feelings of isolation and despair began to wane, replaced by a budding sense of excitement and purpose. With Nigel's assistance and the technology system's capabilities, Harry felt, for the first time, a glimmer of hope about his future. A future that promised to be filled with magic, adventure, and the uncovering of his true potential in a world far beyond the confines of the Dursleys' cupboard. In the cramped, shadowy confines of the cupboard under the stairs, Harry Potter, now armed with a newfound sense of identity and purpose, turned his attention to the intricate details of his status screen. Nigel, ever the source of wisdom and dry humor, stood ready to guide him. Okay, Nigel, Harry began, his voice tinged with curiosity. I understand some of these talents, but there are others that puzzle me. For instance, why do I have a knack for potion brewing when I've never brewed a potion or even know a single formula? Nigel chuckled softly. Master Harry, consider your years of cooking for their Dursleys. Potion making, at its core, is not unlike cooking, a meticulous blend of ingredients to create a desired outcome. Your experience in the kitchen, albeit under less than ideal circumstances, has inadvertently honed a basic understanding of mixing and combining elements. It's a skill that translates rather well into the art of potion brewing. Harry nodded thoughtfully, the analogy making sense to him. And what about arithmancy? Why do I have some talent there? Arithmancy, Master Harry, is essentially the magical equivalent of mathematics, entwined with numerological significance, Nigel explained. Your basic schooling has provided you a foundation in mathematical concepts, which forms the groundwork for understanding the more complex principles of arithmancy. Remember, every wizard's journey begins with the simplest of steps. Harry's brow furrowed in thought. That makes sense. But then, why is my skill in wandless magic marked as excellent? I've never knowingly performed magic without a wand. Ah, but therein lies the beauty of innate talent, Master Harry, Nigel replied with a hint of amusement. Your ability to perform magic without a wand suggests a deep, intrinsic connection to your magical core. It's quite rare and indicates a potential for great power. Many wizards spend years trying to master such a skill, and yet, here you are, naturally gifted. Harry's eyes widened in awe. That's incredible. I had no idea. Indeed, it is, Nigel affirmed. And as for your other talents, we shall explore and refine them in due time. You have a unique blend of skills and attributes, Master Harry, and with the technology system's aid, we will unlock your full potential. Harry, now filled with a sense of intrigue and purpose, turned his attention to practical matters. Which spells should I purchase? Then, Nigel, which do you think would serve me best? Nigel's voice carried a twinge of mischievous humor. Ah, Master Harry, a strategic question indeed. Considering your current, shall we say, domestic situation, there are a few spells that could subtly enhance your standing with your dear Aunt Petunia and Cousin Dudley, while perhaps sowing a few harmless seeds of discord between your aunt and Uncle Vernon. Harry raised an eyebrow, curious about Nigel's suggestion. Go on, Nigel. I'm listening. Nigel's list appeared on the screen, each spell accompanied by a brief description. Scourgify. Cleans surfaces impeccably. Ideal for winning over Aunt Petunia's cleanliness. Obsession. Muffliato. Generates a soft, unnoticeable sound in the background, perfect for causing slight misunderstandings and miscommunications, just enough to create a ripple in the usually calm waters of the Dursley household. Confundo. A subtle spell to cause minor confusion. Use. Sparingly to gently nudge situations in your favor without raising suspicions. Reparo. Repairs. Broken objects. Quite handy to mend things that Dudley might accidentally break. Avis. Conjures are. Small flock of birds. A delightful distraction and a potential source of wonder for Dudley. Shifting his focus away from tormenting you. Episci. Minor healing spell. Useful for those little accidents that tend to happen around you, Master Harry. Harry chuckled softly. Nigel, you're a genius. These spells could really change the dynamics around here. Nigel's tone was laced with satisfaction. Indeed, Master Harry. The key is subtlety. We don't want to unveil your magical prowess too soon or too blatantly. Small, almost imperceptible changes can have a butterfly effect, leading to significant shifts in your daily life. Harry nodded, absorbing Nigel's advice. I'll be careful, Nigel. I don't want to cause any real trouble. Just make life a bit more bearable here. Quite right, Master Harry. Nigel agreed. And remember, while these spells can aid in your current predicament, our primary focus should be on your overall magical development. These small victories will be but stepping stones on your path to becoming a skilled wizard. Harry checked the list and sighed. He could only afford 2 spells at the moment, Scourgify and Muffliato. His curiosity piqued. He asked Nigel why these particular spells were so inexpensive. Nigel's response was tinged with his usual dry humor. Master Harry, these spells are akin to the common cold in the wizarding world, prevalent and rather easy to catch. They're first-year spells, found in nearly every spellbook. Their commonality makes them less costly, a fortunate circumstance for us at this juncture. With the 2 new spells in his arsenal, Harry felt a surge of excitement. He was about to embark on his first foray into practical magic. Nigel, how do I cast these spells without a wand? Wandless magic, Nigel began, his tone reflecting a blend of instruction and encouragement. It's about focusing your magical energy internally rather than channeling it through an external object like a wand. Envision the spell in your mind, feel the magic within you, and direct it towards your intended target. It will not be easy, Master Harry, Nigel cautioned, his voice echoing in the cramped space of the cupboard. Even with a wand, learning a spell can be a challenging endeavor for a novice, particularly one who has never cast a spell before. And attempting it wandlessly, despite your innate talent, adds an additional layer of complexity. Harry furrowed his brow, contemplating the difficulty of the task ahead. So, how do I start? Rit. Sounds almost impossible. Nigel's response carried a hint of encouragement, laced with his typical dry humor. But the impossible often makes for the most interesting challenges, doesn't it? You must start by attuning yourself to your inner magical core. It's like tuning a radio to the right frequency. Once you're in harmony with your magic, the spells should flow more naturally. And how do I do that? Harry asked, his curiosity piqued. Focus and meditation, Master Harry. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and try to sense the magic within you. It's a bit like searching for a friend in a crowded room. You know they're there, you just need to find them. Harry nodded, closing his eyes and taking a deep breath. He tried to push away the thoughts of the Dursleys and his dreary life, focusing instead on the sensation he felt during those rare, unexplained moments when something magical happened around him. Excellent, Nigel encouraged. Now, once you feel that connection, envision the spell you wish to cast. Picture it not just as words or motions, but as in intention, a desire you wish to manifest. Harry concentrated, picturing the Scourgify spell in his mind. He imagined the kitchen floor at the Dursleys dirty and then gradually becoming spotless. He felt a strange sensation, like a warm current flowing through him, focusing on his intention. Very good, Master Harry, Nigel's voice sounded impressed. That warm sensation is your magic, responding to your will. It's a promising start. However, don't be discouraged if your initial attempts don't yield results. Wandless magic is a skill that even seasoned wizards struggle with. Harry opened his eyes, feeling a mixture of excitement and apprehension. I understand, Nigel. I'll practice and try my best. But why is it so hard? Is it just a matter of practice? In part, yes. Nigel explained. Magic is an art as much as it is a science. It requires not only knowledge and practice but also a deep understanding and connection with your magical core. Wandless magic demands a higher level of control and finesse. It's like playing a violin without a bow. Possible, but it requires a great deal of skill and precision. Harry nodded, determined. Then I'll start practicing. I might not get it right away, but I'll keep trying. The next morning, after a night of diligent, albeit exhausting, practice with his newfound wandless magic abilities, Harry was woken by Nigel. His body felt heavy, the result of the significant magical energy he had expended in his unsuccessful attempts at spellcasting. Despite his fatigue, the demands of the Dursley household were unrelenting, and Harry knew he had to prepare breakfast. As he cautiously opened the door of his cupboard, trying not to make a sound, he was surprised to find his Aunt Petunia asleep on the couch. The sight was both shocking and revealing. It was a direct consequence of the slight manipulation he had successfully performed the night before. Harry, feeling a twinge of guilt for his indirect role in the dispute, quickly reassured himself. It was for self-protection, he whispered to himself, dispelling the guilt. The Dursleys had never shown him kindness, and his actions were merely a form of defense, a way to bring a semblance of balance to his life. How am I going to cook now? She may wake up, Harry muttered under his breath, glancing warily at his aunt. He tiptoed towards the kitchen, his steps as light as a feather, mindful of every creak in the floorboards. Nigel, ever present in Harry's mind, chimed in with his usual dry humor. A delicate situation indeed, Master Harry. Treating lightly is wise, but perhaps consider this an opportune moment to test your newfound skills. A little magical nudge might just keep your aunt in her slumber. In the dim morning light filtering through the cracks of the cupboard under the stairs, Harry Potter, still grappling with the reality of his newfound magical abilities, contemplated Nigel's suggestion. Are you suggesting what I think? You are, he whispered, his voice barely audible. Nigel's response remained unsaid, leaving Harry to his own devices. Grinning, Harry focused his intent on casting the Muffly-Ito spell. He envisioned Uncle Vernon's thunderous snoring being redirected towards Aunt Petunia. As Harry concentrated, the magic of Muffly-Ito, unlike what he had initially thought, had another layer of utility, a fact Nigel had deliberately withheld from his explanation. Wandless magic, as Harry was beginning to understand, was driven by intent rather than wand movements or incantations. His imagination, therefore, altered the spell, shaping it to fit his unique purpose. This subtle manipulation was part of Nigel's broader plan. By allowing Harry to experiment and inadvertently modify the spell, Nigel aimed to demonstrate to Harry the potential to adapt and customize magical spells. This lesson was crucial, especially considering the rarity of the Muffly-Ito spell and Harry's limited access to such advanced magic at this stage. Nigel had used his limited authority within the technology system to make the Muffly-Ito spell available for Harry to purchase. It was a strategic move, designed to empower Harry and to encourage his exploration of the nuances of spellcasting, particularly the aspects influenced by his vivid imagination and innate magical talent. As the snoring intensified in Aunt Petunia's ears, she abruptly rose from her slumber on the couch, her eyes ablaze with irritation. "This pig!" she exclaimed, her voice laced with exasperation. The words, while loud enough for Harry to overhear, would never have reached Uncle Vernon's ears if it weren't for the subtle twist of magic Harry had woven. It seemed as though her words were echoing directly in Vernon's mind, rousing him from sleep with the unflattering comparison to a ravished boar. The previous night's altercation, coupled with the insult of his wife's commentary that had awoken him at such an ungodly hour, was enough to push Vernon Dursley over the edge. His anger, already simmering from the previous evening's events, now boiled over. Nigel's voice, ever present in Harry's mind, broke the tension with its characteristic dry humor. "Well, Master Harry, it appears your foray into wandless magic has stirred the pot more than anticipated. A most illuminating outcome, wouldn't you say?" Harry, despite the gravity of the situation, couldn't help but crack a smile at Nigel's comment. He watched as Uncle Vernon, red-faced and fuming, stumbled out of the bedroom, his eyes locking onto Aunt Petunia with a mix of bewilderment and ire. "This pig? Is that what you think of me, Petunia?" Vernon's voice boomed. Through the small house, his indignation palpable. Aunt Petunia, taken aback by her husband's outburst, stammered for a response. Vernon, I didn't. But Vernon was beyond listening. His anger, fueled by the misdirected echo of his wife's words, rendered him deaf to any explanation. The Dursleys, usually a united front in their disdain for Harry, were now embroiled in a heated argument, their attention momentarily diverted from their usual target. Harry seized this opportunity, tiptoeing into the kitchen to begin his morning chores. As he went about his tasks, he reflected on the events that had just transpired. His use of magic, though subtle, had sparked a chain reaction, altering the dynamics of the household, if only for a moment. In the small, cluttered kitchen of number 4, Privet Drive, Harry Potter listened intently to the escalating argument between his Aunt Petunia and Uncle Vernon. The events of the previous day had added fuel to the fire, igniting a full-blown domestic dispute. Harry, hidden from view, could barely believe the words being hurled across the room. Vernon, in a fit of rage, used the same words Petunia had unwittingly directed at him, mocking his equipment. His tone was biting, his words laced with sarcasm and hurt pride. Petunia, her face flushed with anger and humiliation, retaliated sharply. Is it a lie, Vernon? You haven't touched me since Dudley was born. Her voice, usually so controlled and cold, now cracked with emotion. Vernon, red-faced and puffing, struggled to form a coherent rebuttal. His size and health, it seemed, were impediments he could not argue against. Why don't you find a better lover then? Vernon spat out, his voice thick with contempt. Petunia, her rage reaching a boiling point, shot back without hesitation. Maybe I will. Her words were like a slap across Vernon's face, leaving him simmering in rage and suspicion. Nigel's voice, always a source of dry wit and perspective, resonated in Harry's mind. Master Harry, it appears your foray into subtle spellwork has unearthed some rather deep-seated marital issues. A regular Pandora's box. This household. Harry, despite the seriousness of the situation, couldn't help but smirk at Nigel's comment. He never expected his first attempt at wandless magic to unravel the Dursleys' carefully maintained facade of normalcy. As Vernon stewed in his own concoction of rage and suspicion, his mind racing with thoughts of Petunia's fidelity, Harry continued to observe. The tension in the air was palpable, a stark contrast to the usual dull monotony of the Dursley household. Nigel's tone shifted to one of caution. While this is indeed a fascinating development, Master Harry, I would advise caution. The Dursleys are unpredictable, and their current state of discord could lead to unforeseen consequences. Harry nodded, acknowledging Nigel's advice. He knew all too well the volatility of his uncle's temper. I'll be careful, Nigel. I didn't mean for things to get this out of hand. Indeed, Master Harry, the power of magic, even in its subtlest form, can have profound effects on the world around us, Nigel replied, his voice a blend of wisdom and a hint of amusement. It seems you've inadvertently provided a catalyst for change in the Dursley household. A change that may bring about new challenges and opportunities. In the tension-filled living room, the argument between Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia escalated to new heights. Vernon's voice, thick with rage and suspicion, boomed across the room. You think you're so high and mighty, Petunia, but you're just a harlot. Harry, listening from his hidden vantage point, felt a chill run down his spine at the venom in his uncle's voice. He had never heard Vernon speak to Petunia with such hostility. Aunt Petunia, her face a mask of shock and anger, retorted sharply. How dare you, Vernon? After all I've put up with, you have the gall to accuse me. Vernon, his face red and contorted with fury, was beyond reason. Accuse you? I'm stating facts. You're nothing but a... But Harry never heard the end of that sentence. Petunia, driven to the edge by her husband's accusations, struck Vernon across the face with an open hand. The sound of the slap echoed through the kitchen, momentarily silencing the chaos. How dare you? Petunia's voice was icy, her words cutting through the air like a knife. I have never betrayed my vows, despite the lack of love you've shown me. And yet, you have the audacity to call me names? Get out of my house. Vernon, stunned and holding his cheek, seemed momentarily lost for words. The silence was thick, broken only by Petunia's heavy breathing. Vernon, his face still marked by the red imprint of Petunia's hand, snorted in defiance. You can't kick me out. I am the man of this house. His voice, though still laced with anger, carried an undertone of uncertainty. Petunia, her eyes ablaze with a mix of fury and determination, stood her ground. This house was a gift from my sister. It's mine, Vernon. Leave now, or I'll call the police. Vernon, momentarily taken aback by Petunia's resolve, quickly regained his composure. Grumbling under his breath, he stormed upstairs, hastily throwing clothes and essentials into a suitcase. As he descended the stairs, his parting words were cold and bitter. You'll regret this, Petunia. To everyone's surprise, Dudley, who had been listening in from the top of the stairs, hurried down, a look of panic on his round face. Dad. Wait. Take me with you. I can't stay here with her, he blurted out, pointing accusingly at his mother. Petunia's face crumpled in shock and hurt. Dudley, my boy, she began, her voice trembling. Dudley, however, seemed resolute, though a flicker of apology crossed his features. Sorry, Mom. Dad's the one with the job. I need to eat properly. With that, father and son left number 4, Privet Drive, Vernon's final words hanging in the air like a dark cloud. You'll both regret this, he spat out as he slammed the door behind him. Left alone, Petunia collapsed to the floor, her sobs echoing through the now empty house. Harry, hidden in the shadows, watched the scene unfold with a mix of shock and bewilderment. Oops, he muttered, the word feeling inadequate in the face of the chaos he had unintentionally unleashed. While Harry was feeling a pang of guilt over the unexpected turn of events, Nigel seemed to revel in the outcome, albeit in his usual dry, understated manner. Master Harry, while I must admit the situation has escalated rather dramatically, I can't help but observe that you possess a remarkable talent for effecting change, even if inadvertently. Harry looked around the empty, now silent house, the weight of what had just occurred sinking in. I didn't mean for it to go this far, Nigel. I just wanted a bit of, I don't know, relief. Nigel's voice, tinged with a hint of amusement, responded, relief, indeed. Master Harry, you've not only relieved yourself of some of the Dursleys' tyranny but also managed to relieve them of each other's company. Quite efficient, I must say. Despite the seriousness of the situation, Harry couldn't help but crack a slight smile at Nigel's remark. It was hard to stay completely morose with Nigel's wry commentary in the background. Now, Master Harry, Nigel continued, it would be prudent to offer some comfort to your Aunt Petunia. With the household dynamics significantly altered, this might be an opportune moment to foster a semblance of a bond. Remember, alliances, even unlikely ones, can be beneficial. Harry hesitated, the idea of comforting his aunt after years of neglect and mistreatment feeling foreign and somewhat uncomfortable. But Nigel, she's never been kind to me. Why should I help her now? A fair point, Master Harry, Nigel conceded. However, consider this, with Vernon and Dudley no longer in the picture, your aunt might be more amenable to a truce, especially given her current vulnerable state. A little kindness, even if strategically motivated, could go a long way. Taking a deep breath, Harry stepped out from his hiding spot and approached his aunt, who was still sitting on the floor, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Aunt Petunia, he said tentatively, unsure of how she would react. Petunia looked up, her eyes red and swollen from crying. She seemed startled to see Harry, as if she had forgotten his presence in the house. What do you want? She asked, her voice hoarse. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry, Harry said, feeling awkward but determined to follow Nigel's advice. For everything that happened, I know things have been hard. Petunia stared at him, a mix of surprise and suspicion in her eyes. Sorry, you're sorry? Her voice was a mixture of disbelief and bitterness. Petunia, her voice laced with a mix of grief and accusation, turned her tear-streaked face towards Harry. This is all you're doing. It must be. You are cursed. And it caused me, my husband and dear son. Harry, taken aback by the intensity of her words, flinched instinctively. In that moment, as she observed Harry's small, vulnerable frame, a flicker of guilt passed over Petunia's face. She bit her lip, her eyes reflecting a turmoil of emotions. Get out of my sight, she yelled, her voice quivering with a blend of anger and sorrow. Harry, his heart heavy, turned to retreat to his cupboard, the only sanctuary he had ever known in this house. But before he could take a step, Petunia's voice halted him. Go to Dudley's room. I need this floor too. Myself. Harry stood frozen, disbelief etched on his face. He had never been allowed upstairs. unless it was to clean. With hesitant steps, he made his way toward the stairs, half expecting Petunia to call him back, to send him back to the cramped space under the stairs. But she didn't. As Harry entered Dudley's room, a world so different from his own, he felt out of place. Surrounded by Dudley's numerous toys and gadgets, the luxury of the room was overwhelming. Unsure of where to sit, he chose the floor, his back against the bed. Nigel's voice, a constant presence in his mind, carried a hint of dry amusement. "Well, Master Harry, it appears you've been upgraded. From the cupboard to the suite. Quite the turn of events, albeit under less than ideal circumstances." Harry, despite the situation, couldn't help but smile at Nigel's comment. "It's strange, Nigel. I never thought I'd be sitting here, in Dudley's room. It's like being in a different world." "Indeed, Master Harry," Nigel replied. "Remember, every cloud has a silver lining. This unexpected shift in your living arrangements could prove to be beneficial. A more comfortable environment might aid in your magical studies and practice." Harry looked around the room, his eyes landing on Dudley's well-stocked bookshelf. Among the various titles, a few caught his attention. Books on basic science, history, and even a dog-eared encyclopedia. "Nigel, do you think reading some of these could help me with my Muggle studies, perhaps?" "An excellent idea, Master Harry," Nigel encouraged. "Knowledge is power, after all. And while our primary focus is on your magical education, a well-rounded understanding of the Muggle world can only be advantageous." Harry pulled himself up and walked over to the bookshelf, selecting a few volumes that seemed interesting. As he flipped through the pages, he realized that despite the Dursleys' neglect, this moment, here in Dudley's room, offered a unique opportunity, a chance to learn and grow beyond the confines of his previous life. The next morning, Harry Potter awoke early, his mind still grappling with the extraordinary events of the previous night. The house, now shared only with his Aunt Petunia, felt eerily quiet, a stark contrast to the tumultuous scenes that had unfolded. With Nigel, his dry-humored AI companion, ever present in his thoughts, Harry quietly made his way to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. "Master Harry," Nigel's voice resonated in his mind, "it seems we find ourselves in quite the altered domestic landscape. A touch of culinary excellence might be just the thing to ease the tension, don't you think?" Harry, though still adjusting to his new living situation, couldn't help but agree. The kitchen, once a battleground of chores and reprimands, now held a different meaning. It was here that he could put his newfound magical skills to use, subtly enhancing his tasks and perhaps even easing the strained atmosphere. As he carefully prepared the breakfast, Harry was mindful of every sound, every movement. Aunt Petunia, still asleep in her room, seemed a world away from the stern figure she usually presented. It was a delicate balance, ensuring the meal was perfect, a task made easier with Nigel's guidance. After ensuring the breakfast was perfectly prepared, Harry tiptoed to Aunt Petunia's room, his heart pounding with a mix of anxiety and hope. Gently, he knocked on the door and called out softly, "Aunt Petunia, breakfast is ready." There was a brief silence before she emerged, her eyes swollen from crying, offering no acknowledgement as she passed him and headed straight to the bathroom. Relieved at the absence of reprimands, Harry made his way back to the kitchen, resigned to his usual routine of eating alone at the counter. The Dursley household had never offered him a place at the family table, relegating him to the sidelines, both literally and metaphorically. However, as he was about to grab a leftover piece of toast, he heard Aunt Petunia's voice, surprisingly softer than usual. "Boy, come and sit." Harry's steps were hesitant, fear and suspicion clouding his judgment. He gingerly perched on the edge of a chair, ready to bolt at the first sign of a trap. Petunia, observing his cautious demeanor, let out a derisive snort. "It is pitiful to eat alone. Sit with me." Her tone, while not warm, lacked the usual sharpness. Harry, still wary, nodded and slowly began to fill his plate, his movements cautious and measured. Nigel's voice echoed in Harry's mind. "Well, Master Harry, it appears the tides of the Dursley household are changing. Breakfast with Aunt Petunia, who would have thought? Perhaps this is the beginning of a new culinary alliance." Harry, despite the oddness of the situation, couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this was the start of a more bearable existence in the Dursley home. As he took cautious bites of his breakfast, he kept one eye on Aunt Petunia, still trying to decipher this unexpected turn of events. Yet, the Expected criticism or harsh word from Aunt Petunia never arrived. She ate her breakfast in silence, a contemplative expression on her face. After finishing, she retreated to the couch, seemingly lost in her thoughts. Seizing the opportunity, Harry quietly brewed her favorite tea and began the clean-up process, his mind racing with possibilities. As he moved around the kitchen, tidying up with more care than usual, Harry couldn't suppress the budding hope within him. Forming even a tentative relationship with his aunt could mean a world of change for him. It could mean more freedom, a chance to step outside the confines of Privet Drive, and, most importantly, the opportunity to delve deeper into the magical world. Nigel, Harry whispered as he arranged the tea tray. Do you think this could be it? Could this be my chance to go to Diagon Alley, to get real magical books? Nigel's voice, tinged with its usual blend of sarcasm and insight, echoed in his mind. Master Harry, your culinary diplomacy seems to be paying off. Who knew that a well-cooked breakfast could pave the way to Diagon Alley? But remember, the road to independence is paved with more than just scrambled eggs and tea. Harry smiled, appreciating Nigel's humor even in a moment of uncertainty. He carefully carried the tea to where Aunt Petunia sat, her posture less rigid than usual. Placing the tray down, he offered a tentative, "Here's your tea, Aunt Petunia." Petunia, her gaze fixed on some distant point, simply nodded without looking at him. Harry stood there for a moment, awkward and unsure, before returning to the kitchen. As he washed the dishes, his thoughts turned to Diagon Alley, the magical marketplace he had heard so much about. He imagined the rows of shops, the stacks of books on magic, the tools and artifacts that could open up new worlds of learning for him. The mere thought of it filled him with an eagerness he hadn't felt in a long time. Master Harry, Nigel chimed in, bringing him back to reality. Remember, one step at a time. Today's breakfast is just the first course in what promises to be a very interesting banquet of opportunities. Patience and strategy will serve you better than haste and recklessness. Harry nodded, absorbing Nigel's advice. He knew the AI was right. Each small victory, each step forward in his relationship with Aunt Petunia, brought him closer to that magical world he longed to explore. After finishing the cleanup, Harry decided to take his attempts at household diplomacy a step further. He climbed the stairs, each creaking step a reminder of the unfamiliar territory he was venturing into. In the bathroom, he began to prepare a bath for Aunt Petunia, infusing the warm water with scents of lavender, jasmine, and a hint of rosemary. He placed candles strategically around the room, selected a soothing classical music tape to play softly in the background, and laid out a fluffy towel along with one of Aunt Petunia's favorite novels by the tub. As he made these preparations, Nigel's voice rang in his mind. Master Harry, who knew you had the makings of a spa manager in you? Aromatic scents, mood music, literature, the full package. Just be cautious, not to overdo it, or she might suspect you're up to something. Harry chuckled under his breath, appreciating Nigel's blend of sarcasm and practicality. It's just a bath, Nigel. I'm trying to make peace, not start a spa business. With the bath ready, Harry descended the stairs to inform his aunt. He found her still sitting on the couch, her expression distant. Aunt Petunia, he said cautiously, I've prepared a bath for you. I thought you might like to relax. Aunt Petunia's eyes flickered with surprise, her suspicion evident. Why would you do that? She asked, her tone softer than usual but still tinged with wariness. Just thought it might be nice, Harry replied, trying to sound casual. You seem tired. She regarded him for a moment longer before nodding slightly and rising to head upstairs. Harry watched her go, a mix of relief and anxiety swirling within him. He waited until he heard the bathroom door close before turning to Nigel. Now's my chance to ask her about going out. I want to visit library. Ah, Master Harry, the plot thickens, Nigel responded, with his customary dry wit. A strategic bath leading to a tactical request. Remember, subtlety is your ally. Frame your request in a way that benefits her, not just you. Taking a deep breath, Harry rehearsed his words, then made his way upstairs. He knocked softly on the bathroom door. Aunt Petunia, while you're relaxing, may I go out for a bit? I thought I could pick up a few things for the house. There was a moment of silence before Aunt Petunia's voice, slightly muffled, responded. Fine, but don't dawdle. Harry's heart leaped with a mix of excitement and disbelief. Thank you, Aunt Petunia. I'll be back soon. Elated, Harry rushed to his room to gather his bag and quickly dashed out of the house. His mind was set on making the most of his newly granted freedom. The sooner he could reach the library, the more books he could scan and absorb into the technology system. As he hurried along, another quest flared in his mind, the words appearing as if on an invisible screen before him. Quest, Library Marathon. Objective, visit the local library and scan as many books as possible. Each book scanned will enhance your knowledge and add points to your technology system. Target, scan at least 50 books. Time limit, return home before Aunt Petunia notices your absence. Reward, 5 points per 10 book, with a bonus of 100 points if the target is met. Bonus objective, find books on basic magical theory or history for additional points. Reading. The quest details, Harry grinned, his steps quickening. Nigel's voice echoed in his mind, dripping with its usual dry humor. Ah, Master Harry, embarking on a literary sprint, are we? Remember, quality over quantity. And try not to look too suspicious with your nose in the books. We wouldn't want to arouse any Muggle librarian's curiosity. Upon reaching the library, Harry Potter felt a surge of excitement tinged with a hint of nervousness. This was his first venture out alone since the upheaval at the Dursley home. He paused for a moment, taking in the sight of the large, imposing building, its rows of windows like eyes watching over the town. Remember, Master Harry, maintain a semblance of normalcy. We wouldn't want to raise any eyebrows. Nigel's voice echoed in his mind, laced with its usual blend of sarcasm and caution. Harry nodded to himself and pushed the door open, stepping into the quiet, book-lined sanctuary. The scent of old paper and ink filled his senses, a welcome change from the sterile environment of the Dursley household. As he approached the main desk, a stern-looking librarian looked up from her paperwork, her glasses perched precariously on the tip of her nose. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone polite but guarded. Harry swallowed hard. Yes, I'd like to sign up. For a library card, please." The librarian eyed him curiously. "Do you have a parent or guardian with you? We need their signature for new members under 16. Harry hesitated, his mind racing for a suitable response. "It's just me and my Aunt Petunia. She's not feeling well today," he explained, hoping the excuse would suffice. The librarian softened slightly at his words. "I see. Well, we can still sign you up. Just fill out these forms, and I'll issue you a temporary card. You can bring your aunt's signature next time." Grateful, Harry quickly filled out the forms, his handwriting a little shaky from nervousness. The librarian handed him a card with his name on it, and he felt a small surge of pride. This card was more than just a piece of plastic. It represented a step towards independence, towards a world of knowledge he was eager to explore. "Now, Master Harry, let's see what this repository of knowledge has to offer. Remember, focus on crafting and practical skills, but keep an eye out for anything remotely magical," Nigel advised, his tone both encouraging and mischievous. Harry ventured deeper into the library, his eyes wide with curiosity. The shelves were filled with an array of books, each spine holding untold secrets and stories. He started scanning books on crafting, woodworking, metalwork, even basic electrical engineering. Each book he scanned was carefully chosen, its contents immediately stored in the technology system's vast digital library. As he moved through the aisles, Harry couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. He was surrounded by centuries of human thought and creativity, a far cry from the narrow world he had known at the Dursleys. Every book he scanned added points to his technology system, each one a small victory in his quest for knowledge. "Ah, Master Harry, you're quite the literary collector, aren't you? But let's not forget our bonus objective. A little magical theory would be the icing on the proverbial cake," Nigel chimed in, his voice a blend of encouragement and wit. Harry moved towards the section housing historical and theoretical books, his heart pounding with excitement. He scanned titles on ancient civilizations, folklore, and mythology, hoping to find references to magic or the supernatural. His efforts were rewarded when he stumbled upon a book on alchemy and another on the history of witch trials. "These should be interesting," Harry murmured, scanning them eagerly. Each page added to his growing repository of knowledge, a treasure trove he could access any time. As he continued his scanning spree, Harry became increasingly aware of the passing time. He glanced at the clock on the wall, realizing he needed to hurry. Aunt Petunia would be expecting him back soon. "Master Harry, time is of the essence. Let's wrap up this literary marathon and head back. We wouldn't want to arouse any suspicions, Nigel cautioned, his tone a mix of urgency and humor. As Harry finished scanning the last of the books, Nigel tallied up his points. Master Harry, a splendid effort indeed. You've scanned a total of 50 books, earning you 100 bonus points, plus an additional 25 points for the books themselves. And let's not forget the 2 extra books on magical theory and history. That brings us to a grand total of 165 points. Quite a lucrative trip to the library, wouldn't you say? Harry, feeling a mix of triumph and relief, nodded silently, his mind already racing with possibilities these points could unlock in the technology system. Just as he was about to leave, the stern librarian called out to him. Young man, before you go, could you please take this form? It needs to be signed by your guardian for their membership to be fully activated. Harry accepted the form, a slight frown creasing his forehead. Convincing Aunt Petunia to sign it would be a challenge, but one he was determined to meet. Thank you, he said politely, tucking the form into his bag, as he made his way back to Privet Drive. Nigel's voice buzzed in his mind, already formulating a plan. Master Harry, to persuade Aunt Petunia to sign that form, we'll need to employ a bit of subtle manipulation. Remember, she's in a vulnerable state, and we must tread carefully. Harry's steps slowed as he considered Nigel's words. What do you suggest, Nigel? Nigel's tone took on a conspiratorial edge. We must appeal to her sense of pride and perhaps her newfound appreciation of your efforts. Suggest that having a library membership would allow you to bring home more books on cooking and housekeeping skills that you've demonstrated can benefit her directly. Harry nodded, mulling over Nigel's advice. It was a cunning plan, playing to Aunt Petunia's desire for order and cleanliness while also catering to her newfound dependency on him. That could work, Harry murmured. She might see it as a way to keep me occupied and useful. As he approached the house, Harry rehearsed his pitch, choosing his words with care. He found Aunt Petunia in the living room, her demeanor more subdued than usual. Taking a deep breath, he approached her with the form in hand. Aunt Petunia, I was wondering if you could sign this for me. It's a form for the library. I thought I could borrow books on cooking and keeping the house. Well, it might help me be more useful around here. Aunt Petunia regarded him with a mixture of surprise and suspicion. Why do you need to go to the library for that? Can't you learn from what's already here? Harry, anticipating this response, replied smoothly. I've already read through most of the books we have, and I thought learning more advanced techniques could, well, make things nicer for you. Petunia's eyes narrowed suspiciously. And where did you get this form? Did you sneak off to the library behind my back? Are you lying to me, boy? Harry, feeling a spike of panic, quickly crafted a response, inspired by Nigel's cunning. No, Aunt Petunia. I got it at the market. They were distributing them there. Nigel, in Harry's mind, couldn't help but express his approval with a touch of his characteristic dry humor. Bravo, Master Harry. A quick thinker, indeed. Almost as good at spinning tales as you are at making breakfast. Petunia seemed to ponder this for a moment, her gaze still fixed on Harry with a mixture of doubt and curiosity. Finally, she sighed and took the form. Fine, I'll sign it. But no dilly-dallying at the library. You have chores to do. As Harry watched her sign the form, a sense of relief washed over him. He thanked her and hurried back to his room, his mind racing with the possibilities now open to him. Master Harry, Nigel interjected, while today's venture was a success, remember the importance of caution. Our actions in the Muggle world must always be measured and discreet. Harry nodded, acknowledging Nigel's advice. He knew that despite his small victories, he still needed to navigate his life with the Dursleys carefully. The next few days saw Harry applying his new skills and knowledge around the house, earning him a few rare nods of approval from Aunt Petunia. He continued to practice his magical abilities in secret, with Nigel providing guidance and occasional witty commentary. One evening, as Harry sat pondering his next move, Nigel's voice broke the silence. Master Harry, it might be time to consider your next step in the magical world. Perhaps a visit to Diagon Alley? Harry's eyes lit up at the suggestion. Yes, Nigel. But how? Aunt Petunia would never allow it. Nigel's tone took on a conspiratorial edge. We must be strategic, Master Harry. Perhaps a well-crafted story about needing new books from a special bookstore might do the trick. Harry shook his head, dismissing Nigel's suggestion with a hint of newfound confidence. That wouldn't work, Nigel. Aunt Petunia knows about my magical side. Mentioning a special bookstore would only raise her suspicions. Nigel, in his mind, chuckled softly, a sound that held both respect and amusement. Well, Master Harry, it appears you've become quite the strategist. I must admit, even I can't always be right. Harry paced his small room, considering their limited options. We need a reason for me to visit Diagon Alley that Aunt Petunia would believe and approve of. Nigel hummed thoughtfully. Perhaps we could employ a bit of Muggle logic to our advantage. Suggest a visit to a regular bookstore in London. Once you're there, a detour to Diagon Alley might go unnoticed. Harry nodded, the idea taking shape in his mind. That could work. I'll tell her I need more advanced books, ones that the local library doesn't have. London's the best place for that. Harry, his mind buzzing with the beginnings of a plan, turned to Nigel for further counsel. But I need to frame that question at the perfect moment. Any suggestions? He asked, aware that the success of his plan hinged on the timing and presentation of his request. Nigel, ever the strategist, responded with his usual blend of wit and insight. Ah, Master Harry, timing is indeed everything. Let's consider a day when Aunt Petunia is likely to be in her best spirits. Perhaps aligning with her favorite television show or a special moment she cherishes. And to sweeten the pot, a day where you've outdone yourself in terms of household tasks. Harry listened intently, nodding along. Nigel continued, now, if my calculations based on her habits are correct, her menstrual cycle should be ending around next Thursday. Hormonally, she's more likely to be in a better mood then. Combine this with her favorite show, Gardening with Grace, airing that evening. And you have a prime opportunity. Excited by the plan taking shape, Harry added, and on that day, I'll start with a perfect breakfast, the kind that would impress even the most critical chef. Follow it up with a spotlessly clean house, maybe even throw in a massage and prepare a relaxing bath with her favorite scents. Nigel's voice held a note of approval. Exemplary planning, Master Harry. It seems you've taken to this role with a natural flair. A day filled with such attentiveness will surely put her in a receptive frame of mind. As Harry pondered the details, Nigel chimed in again. And when the moment feels right, after her show perhaps, casually bring up the need for more advanced books. Emphasize that a trip to London would provide educational resources that are simply not available locally. Harry, feeling a surge of confidence, began to map out each detail of the day. I'll make sure everything is perfect. Breakfast will be her favorite. Poached eggs on toast with a side of fresh fruit. The house will be immaculate, and for the bath, I'll use lavender and chamomile. She won't be able to say no. Nigel's response was tinged with amusement. Master Harry, with such meticulous planning, you might just be the most cunning wizard in training I've ever had the pleasure of assisting. Just remember, subtlety is key. We don't want to make her suspicious of our true intentions. The following days saw Harry preparing for the big day. He practiced his culinary skills, perfected his cleaning technique, and even researched massage therapy. As the day approached, he felt a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation. Finally, the day arrived. Harry executed each part of his plan with precision. The breakfast was a culinary delight, the house gleamed from top to bottom, and the bath was an aromatic oasis. Aunt Petunia seemed pleasantly surprised by their efforts, her mood noticeably lighter. As they sat in the living room that evening, Aunt Petunia relaxed and content after watching her favorite show, Harry found his moment. Aunt Petunia, I've been thinking. The local library is quite limited in advanced books. A trip to London could provide me with the resources I need to further improve things around here. What do you think? Petunia, knitting her brows, looked at him with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. London? That's a bit far, isn't it? And why can't you just find what you need here? Harry, feeling the weight of her scrutiny, took a deep breath. The library here is great for general knowledge, but I've gone through most of what they have on advanced home care and cooking. London's libraries have a wider selection. It could really help me learn more and do better here. Nigel, sensing Harry's tension, whispered a nugget of advice. Mention a specific book or subject you're interested in. Something that sounds practical and necessary. Taking the cue, Harry added, for example, there's this book on advanced household management techniques I've heard about. It's not available here. It could really help me keep the house even more organized and efficient. Petunia seemed to consider this her expression softening slightly. And how will you get there? You don't have any money for such a trip. Harry, ready for this question, replied. I thought I could do some extra chores or find a way to earn the fare. It's an investment in the house, after all. Nigel, in Harry's mind, chuckled. An investment in the house, indeed. Nicely put, Master Harry. Petunia sighed, seemingly mulling over his words. Well, if you can find a way to pay for it yourself, I suppose it wouldn't hurt, but you'll need to be back by evening. No dilly-dallying. Feeling a wave of relief, Harry thanked her and quickly retreated to his room, his heart racing with excitement. Nigel's voice followed him, tinged with humor and a hint of pride. Well done, Master Harry. You've navigated that negotiation like a seasoned diplomat. Now, the real challenge begins, getting to Diagon Alley without arousing suspicion. The morning after securing Aunt Petunia's reluctant approval for his London trip, Harry Potter found himself facing a new challenge, earning the money for his journey. With his chores efficiently completed, he sat in his modest room, mulling over possible ways to gather funds. Any bright ideas on how to fill my empty pockets, Nigel? Harry asked, half expecting a quip from his AI companion. Nigel's voice resonated in his mind with a touch of playful sarcasm. Well, Master Harry, unless you've discovered a talent for conjuring gold, which, mind you, would be highly illegal and unethical, we'll have to resort to more mundane means. Harry rolled his eyes, smiling despite himself. I was thinking more along the lines of odd jobs, Nigel. Nothing magical, unfortunately. A sound, albeit disappointingly non-magical plan, Nigel retorted. Perhaps you could offer to tidy up the neighbors' gardens or wash their cars. Muggles do love a clean vehicle. Harry considered the suggestion. That might work. The Fletchers down the street always have a car or two in need of a wash. With a plan forming, Harry stepped outside, heading towards the Fletcher household. As he walked, Nigel offered a stream of advice and humorous observations, keeping Harry's spirits high despite the daunting task ahead. Remember, Master Harry, a sparkling car might just reflect well on your wallet, Nigel quipped, causing Harry to chuckle. The Fletchers, a kindly middle-aged couple, were more than happy to take Harry up on his offer, and soon he was armed with a bucket, soap, and a sponge, diligently working on their dusty sedan. As he scrubbed and rinsed, Nigel's voice provided a steady stream of commentary. You know, Master Harry, in some cultures, washing a car is considered a meditative practice. You're not just earning money, you're cleansing your soul. Harry couldn't help but laugh, splashing water in the process. I'll keep that in mind, Nigel. Harry paused in his car washing task, a thought striking him. He entered the library within his mind, a feature of the technology system, TS, that he still marveled at. He searched for any information on car washing techniques or tips to make vehicles shine. The scan function of the TS was impressive, allowing him to store vast amounts of information, but it didn't automatically impart the knowledge to him. He needed to actively read and learn from the scanned material. The TS did offer a function to integrate knowledge directly, but it cost system points, a currency he was keen to save for more crucial uses. Well, Master Harry, are we turning into a car wash encyclopedia now? Nigel quipped, his tone laced with amusement. Remember, the key to a good car wash lies not just in the soap and water, but in the elbow grease you apply. Harry chuckled, sifting through the digital pages in his mind. He found a section on car detailing and quickly skimmed the information. Armed with new knowledge, he set to work with renewed vigor, applying the techniques he had just learned. As Harry worked, Nigel's commentary continued, each remark sprinkled with his unique wit. You know, Master Harry, in some ways, this is quite like potion brewing, just with less risk of explosion or turning someone into a toad. The Fletchers were impressed with Harry's meticulous work, and by the time he was done, the car gleamed in the sunlight. They paid him generously for his efforts, leaving Harry with a sense of accomplishment and a step closer to his goal. Flushed with success, Harry moved on to other neighbors, offering his services. Each car wash added to his small fund, bringing him closer to his trip to Diagon Alley. That evening, as he counted his earnings, Nigel offered a word of caution. Master Harry, while your entrepreneurial spirit is commendable, remember to pace yourself. We wouldn't want to exhaust you before your big adventure. Harry nodded, feeling the day's labor in his muscles. You're right, Nigel. I need to be in top form for Diagon Alley. The following days were a blur of activity. Harry balanced his chores at the Dursleys with his car washing enterprise, each day ending with him a little more tired but significantly richer. As the day of his trip to London drew near, Harry prepared meticulously. He rehearsed the story he would tell Aunt Petunia and planned his route to Diagon Alley. Master Harry, remember, the best lies contain a grain of truth. Stick close to your story, and avoid unnecessary embellishments, Nigel advised, his voice a mixture of seriousness and mirth. On the morning of his journey, Harry woke up early, a bundle of nerves and excitement. He dressed carefully, choosing clothes that were neat but inconspicuous. After a quick breakfast, he approached Aunt Petunia. Aunt Petunia, I'm heading to London now. I should be back by evening, he said, his voice steady despite the fluttering in his stomach. Petunia, busy with her own tasks, barely glanced at him. Be back before dark, and don't get into any trouble, she replied absently. Harry nodded, feeling a surge of relief. Thank you, Aunt Petunia. I'll be careful. As he stepped out of the Dursley home, a sense of freedom washed over him. He was about to embark on his first solo adventure into the magical world, a prospect that both thrilled and daunted him. Off we go, Master Harry, into the great unknown. Or rather, the partially known. Since we've done our homework, Nigel said, his voice brimming with excitement. Eager and slightly apprehensive, Harry Potter boarded the bus to London, his mind buzzing with the prospect of finally visiting Diagon Alley. He settled into a seat near the back, his gaze fixed on the passing scenery. A physical manifestation of his journey from the ordinary world into one brimming with magic. Master Harry, remember to blend in. Act like a typical boy on an outing, not like someone embarking on a magical quest, Nigel advised, his tone a mix of seriousness and playfulness. Harry nodded subtly, knowing well the importance of maintaining a low profile. As the bus trundled through the streets, he went over the plan in his mind. Once in London, he would make his way to the Leaky Cauldron, the gateway to Diagon Alley. He had learned about its location from Nigel in exchange for a few precious TS points. Upon reaching London, Harry disembarked and navigated the bustling streets with a blend of excitement and nervousness. The Leaky Cauldron, hidden in plain sight from the non-magical world, was a place Harry had only imagined until now. Finding the pub was easier than he expected, thanks to Nigel's detailed instructions. Harry stepped inside, the dim, somewhat musty interior a stark contrast to the bright London streets. The pub was sparsely populated, with a few patrons scattered around, nursing their drinks. Now, Master Harry, remember, we need to convince Tom, the barman, to open the passage for you without raising suspicion. You don't have a wand, so you'll need a plausible story, Nigel murmured, his voice a low hum in Harry's mind. Harry approached the bar, his heart pounding in his chest. Excuse me, sir, he began, addressing the barman, a burly man with a friendly face. I'm supposed to meet my uncle here, but it seems I'm a bit early. He's a regular, goes to Diagon Alley. I was wondering if I could wait for him there. Tom, the barman, eyed Harry curiously. Diagon Alley, eh? And who's your uncle? Harry's mind raced, and he blurted out the first name that came to mind, Mr. Smith. He comes here often for, supplies. Nigel, in his mind, let out a soft chuckle. Mr. Smith, the most common of names for the most uncommon of places. Let's hope Tom doesn't pry too much. As Tom the barman squinted at him, Harry felt a pang of nervousness. He heard Nigel's voice in his mind, announcing the deduction of technology system, TS, points for additional knowledge about Diagon Alley. I am deducting TS points to learn more about Diagon Alley, 100 points deducted. Though Harry winced internally at the significant deduction, he maintained his composure in front of Tom. Tell him that your uncle will be waiting for you at Florian Fortescue's ice cream parlor, Nigel quickly suggested. Harry relayed this information, hoping it sounded convincing enough. My uncle, Mr. Smith, said he'd meet me at Florian Fortescue's ice cream parlor. Tom, still somewhat dubious, seemed to accept this explanation. He nodded slowly, aware that Harry knew about Diagon Alley and magical places, indicating he wasn't just a regular muggle boy. All right then, I'll let you through, but don't go causing any trouble, he warned. Grateful, Harry hurried through the passage that Tom opened, his heart racing with excitement and apprehension. As he stepped into Diagon Alley, he was immediately struck by the bustling atmosphere and the myriad of sights and Sounds. The street was alive with witches and wizards, bustling between shops and stalls, their robes of various colors swirling around them. The air was filled with the sounds of haggling, laughter, and the occasional squawk of an exotic animal. Nigel's voice rang in Harry's mind, tinged with excitement. Ah, Diagon Alley, Master Harry, a veritable smorgasbord of the magical world. Take it all in, but remember, we're on a tight schedule. Harry's eyes widened as he took in the fantastical storefronts. There was Ollivander's, with its promise of wands for every witch and wizard, and the apothecary, with its curious assortment of ingredients. But his primary destination was Flourish and Blott's, the famous bookstore he had longed to visit. As Harry Potter stepped into the enchanting chaos of Diagon Alley, he felt as though he had entered another world. The narrow, cobbled street, lined with a myriad of shops and stalls, buzzed with the energy of the magical community. Towering stacks of cauldrons, shimmering brooms, and the tantalizing aromas of magical treats filled the air. For a moment, he stood transfixed, absorbing the vibrant tapestry of sights and sounds. Nigel, Harry whispered, a sense of urgency in his voice, I need to be organized. I have only an hour to spend here, then I need to visit other places. Please create a list of their most important books for me right now. Nigel's voice, always a source of guidance mixed with humor, responded in Harry's mind. Right you are, Master Harry. Let's focus on the essentials. History of Magical Britain, first-year spells, practical spells, and perhaps a quick peek at the Dark Creatures section, for good measure. Harry made his way to Flourish and Blott's, the renowned bookstore, his eyes wide with wonder. The shop's exterior, adorned with flying books and animated posters of famous wizards, was a sight to behold. He stepped inside and was immediately enveloped by the smell of old parchment and ink. The store was a labyrinth of shelves, each having under the weight of countless tomes. Wizards and witches of all ages perused the aisles, their robes brushing against the ancient carpet. Harry, feeling slightly overwhelmed but determined, began his mission. He moved through the store with purpose, scanning book after book. His technology system, TS, efficiently absorbed the contents of each volume, from the basic spells of the standard book of spells, grade 1 to the intricate details in a history of magic. Each scan was a treasure trove of information, and Harry felt a thrill with every new addition to his digital library. Nigel, ever present in his mind, offered a running commentary. Ah, Master Harry, you're like a kid in a candy store. If the candy could potentially turn you into a newt, be sure to grab something on potion making. I've always fancied the idea of brewing a perfect cup of tea. Harry couldn't help but chuckle, even as he continued his frantic pace. Time was of the essence, and he was keenly aware of the ticking clock. After an intense hour of scanning, Harry's collection had grown exponentially. He had gathered a comprehensive array of magical knowledge, from the basics to more advanced concepts. His TS points had taken a hit, but it was a small price to pay for such a wealth of information. Master Harry, time to wrap up here. What's next on our magical mystery tour? Nigel inquired, his tone laced with anticipation. Harry, his mind abuzz with the new knowledge he had acquired, suddenly remembered another crucial aspect of the magical world. Nigel, I've been thinking about visiting Gringotts. But you mentioned that the headmaster of Hogwarts would be alerted if I went there, right? Nigel's voice echoed in his mind with a tone of caution. Indeed, Master Harry. As it stands, Dumbledore, being your guardian in the magical community, would be notified of your visit to Gringotts. It's an unfortunate snag in our otherwise flawless plan. Harry's brow furrowed in thought. But I read in the history of magic that goblins would do almost anything for gold. Couldn't I offer them some gold in exchange for their silence? Nigel chuckled, a sound that seemed to dance with wisdom and amusement. Clever thinking, Master Harry. However, goblins are notoriously cunning and pragmatic. Dumbledore is not only the headmaster of Hogwarts but also holds numerous influential titles. His words carry significant weight in the magical community, and the goblins at Gringotts would be reluctant to offend him for a mere handful of gold. Harry sighed, feeling the weight of his limitations. He walked aimlessly through Diagon Alley, his pockets light and his heart heavy. His gaze fell upon the wondrous items in the shop. Windows, brooms that could fly at breathtaking speeds, cauldrons bubbling with unseen magic, and robes that shimmered with enchantment. Yet, his limited funds meant he could only observe, not partake. Nigel's voice, ever the source of perspective, reminded him, Master Harry, today was not about acquiring trinkets but about gaining knowledge, the most valuable treasure in any wizard's arsenal. You've succeeded admirably on that front. Harry nodded, his spirit slightly lifted by Nigel's words. You're right, Nigel. I've learned so much today. It's just frustrating to be so close and yet so far from everything this world has to offer. Nigel, sensing Harry's disappointment, added, Patience, Master Harry. Your journey in the wizarding world has just begun. There will be time for brooms and cauldrons. For now, let's focus on preparing you for their challenges ahead with the knowledge you've gathered. As Harry strolled through the alley, he couldn't help but feel a twinge of envy watching other young wizards and witches with their bags full of magical supplies. He reminded himself of the incredible repository of knowledge he now carried within his technology system, a resource that would prove invaluable in the days to come. Remember, Master Harry, knowledge is a weapon, a tool, and a shield all rolled into one. You're better armed now than you were this morning, Nigel reassured him. Harry, taking a deep breath, turned his steps back towards the leaky cauldron, ready to make his way back to the mundane world of the Dursleys. You're right, Nigel. I've got a lot to learn and prepare for. This is just the start. As Harry Potter made his way out of Diagon Alley, his heart still racing from the excitement and wonders he had witnessed, he stepped back into the dimly lit interior of the leaky cauldron. Tom, the barman, glanced up from polishing a glass and eyed Harry with a hint of suspicion. Still here on your own, eh? Where's this uncle of yours? Tom asked, his tone tinged with curiosity. Harry, caught off guard, stammered for a moment before Nigel's voice offered a timely suggestion. Tell him your uncle got called away on urgent business but he'll meet you at home later. He, got called away on some urgent business, Harry replied, trying to sound casual. He said he'd meet me back at home. Tom seemed to accept this explanation, albeit with a raised eyebrow. All right then, off you go. Don't get into any trouble, mind you. Harry nodded, relieved to have dodged further questioning, and hurried out of the pub. As he boarded the bus back to Privet Drive, he couldn't help but replay the day's events in his mind. The magic of Diagon Alley still lingered in his senses, a stark contrast to the mundane world he was returning to. Nigel, today was incredible, but I can't help feeling a bit out of place, like I don't quite belong there yet, Harry confessed, gazing out the bus window. Nigel's voice, soothing yet realistic, chimed in. You're on the cusp of two worlds, Master Harry. It's natural to feel a bit adrift. But remember, every great wizard started as an outsider. You're no different. As the bus trundled along, Harry's thoughts turned to Aunt Petunia and the explanation he would have to provide for his empty-handed return. His heart sank at the thought, but Nigel offered a reassurance. Focus on the positives, Master Harry. You've gained invaluable knowledge today. That's what matters. Upon arriving back at Privet Drive, Harry found Aunt Petunia waiting, her expression one of mild curiosity mixed with her usual stern demeanor. Back so soon? And where are the books you were so eager to get? Harry, thinking quickly, replied, the library in London was much bigger than I expected. I couldn't decide on what to get in the time I had, but I learned a lot just by being there. Aunt Petunia seemed to buy this explanation, though her gaze lingered on him a moment longer than usual. Well, don't just stand there. Dinner won't cook itself. Harry nodded and hurried to the kitchen, where he set about preparing dinner. As he worked, his mind still wandered back to the magical sights of Diagon Alley, a world he was now a small part of. Nigel's voice broke into his thoughts. Remember, Master Harry, a good meal can soften even the hardest of hearts. Perhaps this is your chance to further ease the tension in the house. Dinner that evening was a quiet affair. Harry had outdone himself with the meal, and even Aunt Petunia seemed impressed, though she would never admit it. As they ate, she asked about his trip to London, her tone carrying a hint of genuine interest. Harry shared a few details, carefully omitting anything magical, and found himself enjoying the conversation, a rarity in the Dursley household. It seemed that Aunt Petunia, in her own way, was curious about the world outside Privet Drive. As they finished eating, Harry decided to seize the moment. Aunt Petunia, there's something I've been meaning to tell you. She looked at him, her expression guarded. What is it? Harry took a deep breath. I want to thank you for letting me go to London today. It meant a lot to me. Aunt Petunia's face softened ever so slightly. Well, don't expect it to be a regular occurrence. But, you're welcome. After Harry's successful mission to Diagon Alley, with Nigel's guidance, Harry worked diligently to navigate his life at the Dursleys while subtly introducing the idea of magic to Aunt Petunia. Their dynamic was delicate, a careful balance of respect and strategy, as Harry tried to soften her stance before the arrival of his Hogwarts acceptance letter. As Harry and Nigel discussed their next steps in the kitchen, where Harry meticulously prepared breakfast, Nigel's regular wit surfaced. Master Harry, while your culinary skills are admirable, remember that our true goal is to season Aunt Petunia's perception of magic, not just her eggs. Harry, taking the advice to heart, planned to approach Aunt Petunia with a thoughtful gesture. He decided to prepare her favorite tea, setting it down with a gentle, "Here's your tea, Aunt Petunia." She looked up, a hint of surprise in her eyes. Harry knew that small acts of kindness could slowly change her views. Nigel chimed in. "Ah, the subtle art of persuasion. Sometimes a well-brewed cup of tea can do more than 1,000 words, especially if the words are about magic." Later, as Harry worked in the garden, he tried to casually bring up a topic that would pique Petunia's interest without raising suspicion. "Aunt Petunia, did you know there are plants that are said to have magical properties? I read about it in one of Dudley's books. Quite fascinating." Petunia's response was immediate and sharp. "There is no such thing as magic, boy." Her voice was harsh, cutting through the air like a knife. Harry knew he had to tread carefully now, or he might never get another chance to broach such a topic with her. Quickly thinking on his feet, Harry replied, "Of course, Aunt Petunia. I just meant it's interesting how people used to believe in such things. It's all just stories and imagination, isn't it?" Nigel's voice, a blend of amusement and strategy, whispered in Harry's mind. Well, Master Harry, dodging the bludgers with the grace of a seeker. Redirect, deflect, and keep the snitch in sight. Harry's response seemed to slightly ease Petunia's demeanor. She glanced at him, her eyes still suspicious but not as cold as before. "Yes, just stories. Don't fill your head with such nonsense." Later, in his room, Harry discussed his approach with Nigel. "I think I was too direct, Nigel. I need to be more subtle." Nigel agreed, his tone laced with a hint of mischief. "Subtlety is the key, Master Harry. We must introduce the concept of magic as one would introduce a cat to water, with great care and from a safe distance." Harry chuckled, appreciating Nigel's analogy. "I'll keep that in mind." Harry pondered his next move, considering a more academic approach. "I should bring a school project about witch hunts," he mused aloud. "I could address her female side, and how women were oppressed, and her yearning to become a witch, as you put it. If what you said is true, and she always wanted to become a witch, she will relate to the subject." Nigel, with mock hurt in his tone, replied, "I am hurt, Master Harry. I will let you know. I am rarely wrong. But your plan has merit. A historical context might just be the spoonful of sugar to help the magic go down." Harry spent the next few days researching for his project. He delved into the history of witch hunts, the societal fears, and the injustice faced by women accused of witchcraft. As he worked, Nigel provided insights and snippets of historical context, ensuring Harry's understanding was both accurate and comprehensive. "A project on witch hunts, eh?" Nigel said, his voice tinged with a sardonic edge. "Remember, Master Harry, history is often darker than any fiction. Tread carefully, for you are navigating through a minefield of human tragedy and superstition." After Harry's insightful journey into the history of witch hunts, he prepared to present his findings to Aunt Petunia, knowing full well the challenge that lay ahead. The subject was sensitive, and Petunia's long-standing resentment towards anything magical made this task akin to walking on a tightrope. Harry approached the topic during dinner, his voice steady but laced with a hint of curiosity. "Aunt Petunia, I learned something interesting at school today about witch hunts. It's quite shocking how misunderstood these women were." Petunia, her fork midway to her mouth, paused, her expression one of immediate dismissal. "Witch hunts? That's a dark and foolish part of history. We shouldn't dwell on such nonsense." Nigel's voice, ever present in Harry's mind, advised with a note of dry humor. The direct approach hit a snag. "Time to employ a bit of lateral thinking, Master Harry. Remember, the best strategy sometimes is to circle around the subject." Harry, taking Nigel's advice, shifted the conversation subtly. "True, Aunt Petunia. It's Just that these women were often just healers or midwives. It made me think about how people can be misunderstood. Understanding the complexity of the task at hand and the deeply rooted resentment Aunt Petunia held. Harry knew he needed a more nuanced approach. The challenge was immense, too. Subtly shift her entrenched views without directly confronting them. Nigel, always a reservoir of cunning strategies, whispered, Master Harry, this task is akin to redirecting a river. Subtle, gradual shifts are needed. The art of manipulation lies in making the other person believe they've arrived at a conclusion all on their own. Over the next few weeks, Harry took every opportunity to subtly weave in tales and anecdotes that blurred the lines between fact and fiction, history and myth. He spoke of famous historical figures, gently hinting at the misunderstood nature of their actions and the fear that drove society's response to them. Did you know, Aunt Petunia, about Joan of Arc? Harry would start. Or, I read about this scientist, Galileo, who was misunderstood in his time. Each story was carefully chosen to echo the themes of misunderstanding and fear of the unknown. Nigel's guidance was invaluable. You're doing well, Master Harry, but remember, the key is in the delivery. Your tone, your expression, the timing of your words, all contribute to the subtle art of persuasion. Harry also began to introduce the idea of magic in a historical and cultural context. He talked about ancient myths, folklore, and legends, framing them as curious artifacts of human history rather than truths. One evening, as they sat quietly in the living room, Harry cautiously brought up the Salem witch trials. It's strange how fear can lead to such terrible events, he remarked casually. People were so scared of what they didn't understand that they ended up harming innocent people. Petunia's reaction was immediate and sharp. That's all just superstitious nonsense, Harry. People in the past were ignorant and foolish to believe in such things. Nigel's voice echoed in Harry's mind. Careful, Master Harry, tread lightly. Your aunt's skepticism is a formidable barrier. You must approach this with the subtlety of a chess master, anticipating her moves and countering them with finesse. Acknowledging Nigel's advice, Harry replied, Of course, Aunt Petunia. It's just interesting to see how much society has changed. How things once feared are now understood differently. Over the following days, Harry continued this delicate dance, weaving a narrative that subtly challenged Petunia's views without directly confronting them. He talked about the evolution of science and how many things once considered magical were now understood as natural phenomena. Aunt Petunia, did you know that people once believed thunderstorms were signs of angry gods? Harry would say, and then smoothly transition to discussing how scientific understanding had dispelled such myths. Nigel's presence was a constant source of guidance and reassurance. You're planting the seeds of doubt, Master Harry. With time and patience, they may yet take root. However, the real breakthrough came unexpectedly one evening. As Harry was helping Petunia with dinner, he casually mentioned a documentary he had watched about ancient civilizations and their belief systems. It's fascinating how every culture has its own explanation for the mysteries of the world, Harry mused. It makes you wonder what truths we might be missing today, doesn't it? Petunia, who had been chopping vegetables, paused and looked at Harry. For a moment, there was a glimmer of curiosity in her eyes, quickly masked by her usual stern facade. Nigel's voice was triumphant yet cautious. Ah, Master Harry, you've caught her interest. This is a pivotal moment. Proceed with care. Encouraged, Harry continued, it's all about perspective, isn't it? What one person sees as magic, another might see as just another part of their world to be understood. For the first time, Petunia seemed to genuinely consider Harry's words. She didn't respond, but the seed of thought was planted. That night, as Harry lay in his bed, Nigel's voice was filled with satisfaction. You've done well today, Master Harry. The hardest barriers to break are those within the mind. But remember, this is just the beginning. Changing a person's beliefs is a journey, not a single step. To Harry's utter surprise, the next day, Petunia unexpectedly called him into the living room. She held an old photograph, her fingers trembling slightly as she extended it towards him. The picture, slightly faded with time, captured a woman and a man. Harry's breath hitched. The woman had the greenest of eyes, exuding a serene beauty, and her smile radiated a pure, untainted joy. Beside her, a man with a cocky smile and glasses, exuded a certain rogue charm. Harry's eyes watered. surge of emotions engulfing him, though he couldn't quite grasp why. Seeing the unguarded emotion on Harry's face, a flicker of something, perhaps regret or a long-suppressed empathy, crossed Petunia's face. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared, her features resettling into their usual stern expression. Nigel's voice, laced with a hint of irony, whispered in Harry's mind, "Ah, Master. Harry, the walls of Jericho are starting to show cracks. But remember, a fortress doesn't fall with the first trumpet blast." Harry, clutching the photograph, looked up at his aunt. "Who are they? Aunt Petunia?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Petunia hesitated, her eyes darting away from Harry's gaze. They were your parents, Harry," she said, her voice tight, as if the words were being dragged out of her. Harry's heart skipped a beat. "My parents," he repeated, softly, his eyes glued to the picture. Nigel's voice was gentle yet incisive in Harry's mind. "Tread carefully, Harry. This is hallowed ground you're stepping on. Use this moment wisely." Harry, sensing the opportunity, said, "I've never seen them before. They look happy." He looked up at Petunia, searching for a connection, a shared sentiment. Petunia's lips thinned. "That was a long time ago. Things were different then," she said, her voice laced with a mix of bitterness and nostalgia. Nigel, ever the strategist, suggested, "Now's the time to bridge the gap, Master Harry. Appeal to her memories, her lost dreams." Harry gently prodded. "You knew them well, didn't you? Aunt Petunia? What were they like?" Petunia turned away, her body language closed off. "I don't want to talk about it, Harry. It's in the past." Nigel's voice was a mixture of encouragement and caution. "Persistence, Harry, but with finesse. You're walking a tightrope here. Over the next few days, Harry, guided by Nigel's tactical advice, looked for ways to gently coax Petunia into sharing more about his parents. He strategically left the photograph in places where she would undoubtedly see it, each citing a silent invitation to reminisce. One evening, while preparing dinner, Harry ventured another attempt. "Aunt Petunia, I was thinking about what you said the other day about my parents. It must have been hard for you when they passed." Petunia paused, her back still turned to Harry. "Life is full of hardships, Harry. We all must learn to move on." Nigel, sensing a shift, whispered, "Now, Harry, connect her feelings to yours. Show her that you understand." Harry nodded to himself, taking a deep breath. "I know it's hard. I miss them too, even though I never really knew them. It feels like there's a part of me that's always been missing." Petunia remained silent for a long moment, then, without turning around, said softly, "They were very much in love. Your mother, Lily, she had a way of making everyone around her feel special." Harry's heart leaped at the revelation, a small victory in his quest to understand his past and connect with his aunt. Nigel's voice was full of approval. "Well done, Master Harry. You've opened a door long closed. Now we must ensure it doesn't shut again." Harry sat alone in his room, the photograph of his parents resting on his lap. The newfound knowledge about his mother and father stirred a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. It was then that a realization dawned on him. A complex puzzle piecing itself together in his mind. He understood that Aunt Petunia's disdain towards him was rooted not only in his resemblance to his father but also in a deeper, more painful history. "She hates me because I look like Dad, but why does she hate him so much?" Harry pondered. Nigel, in his typical fashion, offered no immediate answers, allowing Harry to explore his thoughts. Nigel said Aunt Petunia envied Mum for her magic. That much is clear. But her hatred for Dad, James, it must be more personal. It's not just about magic. Harry thought aloud. He delved deeper into his memories, the stories Nigel had shared, and the snippets of conversations he overheard through the years. Harry realized that Aunt Petunia's resentment towards his mother, Lily, wasn't solely because of her magical abilities. It was more complex. Petunia must have missed Lily terribly. Hogwarts semesters are long, and Lily stayed at school for most of the year. Petunia was left behind, alone, her envy growing into resentment. He then thought about his father, James. And then there's Dad. He came into Mum's life when she was about to graduate. Just when Petunia thought she'd have her sister back, James appeared, a stranger who took Lily away for good. Petunia must have seen him as the final thief of her sister's affection. Harry's mind raced with possibilities. If I want Aunt Petunia to accept my magical side, I need to recreate the bond she had with Mum. But it has to be even more special. And I need to be subtle about it. Harry knew this. Wouldn't be easy. Petunia's face didn't soften quickly. She had years of resentment built up, not just towards him but towards the magical world as a whole. Nigel, always the voice of reason with a hint of sarcasm, broke into Harry's thoughts. Ah, Master Harry, delving into the depths of family psychology, are we? Be careful, the waters are treacherous, and the current strong. Harry nodded. To himself. I know, Nigel, but I have to try. I need to make Aunt Petunia see me not just as James's son but as Lily's son too. With his newfound resolve, Harry planned his next move. He knew his knowledge about his mother, Lily, was limited, so he decided to engage Aunt Petunia in conversation about her, carefully observing her reactions and emotions. It was a challenging task, given his limited experience in reading emotions, but with his mind now functioning like an advanced computer, he could analyze and rewatch any memory in detail. One evening, while helping Petunia with the dishes, Harry cautiously broached the subject. Aunt Petunia, you mentioned Mum was special. Could you tell me more about her? Petunia's hands stilled for a moment, a flicker of something crossing her face before she regained her composure. There's not much to tell, Harry. She was your mother, and she was. That's all. Harry observed her closely. Her words were dismissive, but her eyes darted away briefly, a sign of discomfort. Her jaw tensed, indicating she was holding back emotions. Nigel's voice echoed in Harry's mind. Observe the nuances, Master Harry. The devil, as they say, is in the details. Undeterred, Harry pressed on gently, but you grew up together, didn't you? You must have shared some happy moments. Petunia paused, her expression hardening. I don't see why that's any of your concern. Nigel's voice was a blend of encouragement and realism, persistence, Harry. But remember, subtlety is key. Don't push too hard. Over the next few days, Harry tried different approaches to get Petunia to open up. He shared anecdotes from school, hoping to trigger her memories of Lily. He even brought up a school project on family history, subtly steering the conversation towards their shared past. Each attempt was met with resistance. Petunia's walls were high, built from years of resentment and pain. Her reactions were guarded, her responses brief. But Harry noticed small cracks in her armor. A distant look when he mentioned a childhood memory, a slight softening of her eyes when he talked about missing his parents. Nigel's strategic advice was invaluable. Consider your approach as laying a siege, Master Harry. You're not storming the castle, you're surrounding it, waiting for the right moment to enter. Harry realized he needed a bigger, more impactful tactic to reach Petunia. He decided to create a scrapbook of his parents' memories, hoping it would stir Petunia's emotions and make her more receptive. He spent hours painstakingly putting together pictures and anecdotes, some real and some fabricated, to paint a picture of Lily and James Potter, not as a witch and a wizard, but as a sister, a daughter, a friend, and a loving couple. Presenting the scrapbook to Petunia was a gamble. Harry waited for a moment when she seemed in a relatively good mood. Aunt Petunia, I made this scrapbook about my parents. I thought you might like to see it. Petunia's initial reaction was to dismiss it, but curiosity got the better of her. As she flipped through the pages, Harry watched her face intently. Her eyes lingered on a photo of Lily laughing, a softness appearing in her gaze. Her fingers traced the edge of the page, a subconscious gesture of longing. Nigel observed quietly, you've struck a chord, Master Harry. Now, let's see if we can play a melody. Encouraged, Harry said, I always wondered what Mum was like as a sister. You must have had some good times together. Petunia's guard was down, if only slightly. She was always the special one, the favorite, she said, her voice laced with a mix of bitterness and sadness. Always getting attention for her abilities. Nigel whispered, tread carefully, Harry, you're navigating a minefield of emotions. Harry nodded, choosing his words with care. It must have been hard, feeling left out. I feel that way sometimes, being a freak. Hearing Vernon's derogatory nickname for him echoed in his own voice, Harry saw a sudden change in Petunia's demeanor. Her face, usually a mask of stern disapproval, twisted in a moment of raw emotion. You are not a freak. She was not a freak, she exclaimed, her voice trembling slightly. Harry knew immediately who she was. Lily. This unexpected defense of her sister and, indirectly, of him, was a significant shift in Petunia's usual attitude. Harry analyzed every minute detail of Petunia's reaction. Her eyes, usually cold and detached, now held a spark of something akin to pain. The way her voice hitched when she mentioned Lily, the subtle tremor in her hands as they momentarily paused over the scrapbook, all these were telltale signs of deeply buried emotions resurfacing. Even her posture, typically rigid and upright, seemed to sag under the weight of memories long suppressed. Nigel, observing the scene, offered his insight. "Well, Master Harry, it seems we've struck a nerve. The fortress is not impregnable after all." However, Petunia's moment of vulnerability was fleeting. She quickly regained her composure, her face hardening once again as she dismissed the subject. "Enough of this, Harry. These are old wounds best left unopened," she said, shutting the scrapbook with a finality that brooked no argument. Harry, realizing the gravity of the situation, knew he needed a more significant tactic to reach his aunt. He could no longer rely on subtle hints and indirect references. He needed to confront the issue head-on, but with a level of tact and sensitivity that would not alienate Petunia further. "Perhaps, Aunt Petunia, it's time those wounds were healed," Harry suggested cautiously, watching her reaction closely. Petunia's response was swift and sharp. "There's nothing to heal, Harry. The past is the past." Her voice was firm, leaving no room for further discussion. Harry knew he was treading on thin ice. He needed to approach the subject in a way that resonated with Petunia, to make her see him not as the son of James Potter, whom she resented, but as the son of her sister, Lily. Harry decided to take a step back for a while. Recognizing that pushing too hard might only serve to reinforce Petunia's defenses, he resolved to give her space to process her emotions. This was not a battle to be won in a day, he realized, but a campaign that required patience and careful maneuvering. In the meantime, Harry turned his attention to the wealth of knowledge he had scanned in Diagon Alley. He entered the library in his mind, an expansive, almost endless room lined with books, each a container of magical lore. The first book he picked up was a history of magic. As he read, the words leaped off the page, their history of the wizarding world unfolding before him. "Ah, delving into the annals of our world, ah. We, a prudent choice, Master Harry," Nigel's voice echoed in his mind, laced with a dry humor that belied the seriousness of their endeavor. "Remember, knowledge is power, particularly when navigating the murky waters of familial reconciliation." Harry immersed himself in the book, absorbing the tales of ancient wizards and witches, their triumphs and tragedies. He read about the founding of Hogwarts, the Great Wizarding Wars, and the evolution of magical society. Each story was a piece of a larger puzzle, helping him understand the world he was about to enter. Nigel's voice often provided context, filling in the gaps with historical tidbits and anecdotes. "Ah, Godric Gryffindor, quite the character. A tad dramatic for my taste, but you can't deny his flair for the heroic." Harry found the history fascinating, but his thoughts often drifted back to Aunt Petunia. He knew that to reach her, he needed to employ a tactic that resonated with her, something that would make her see him in a new light. But Harry would wait for her to process her emotions first. Haste made waste. He instead turned his focus to the first-year charms book of Hogwarts curriculum, which he had scanned while in Diagon Alley. With this, he planned to expand his repertoire of spells. So far, he only knew two: Scourgify, a cleaning spell, and Muffliato, which, due to Nigel's mischievous alteration in the description, Harry believed allowed him to control sounds around him as he wished. This, Harry thought, was the beauty of wandless magic, reliant more on intent, making it versatile and powerful. As he read through the spells, analyzing which ones he needed most, Harry realized the depth of challenge he faced. Without a wand, each spell required a focus and concentration that was both exhausting and exhilarating. He came across spells like Lumos, the light spell, and Nox, its counterpart. Both seemed fundamental, yet Harry knew mastering them wandlessly would be a significant achievement. "A light spell, Master Harry? Illuminating in more ways than one, I dare say," Nigel commented, his tone dripping with his usual sense of humor. "Remember, the intent is key. Picture the light, become the light." Harry nodded to himself, absorbing Nigel's advice. He practiced Lumos, focusing his mind on the concept of light, feeling it build within him before releasing it. The first attempts were unsuccessful, but Harry was not one to give up easily. Next, he read about Leviosa, the levitation spell. Ah, levitating. Objects. A handy skill, though I dare say it won't lift the weight of your current familial predicament, Nigel quipped. Harry ignored the sarcasm, concentrating instead on the mechanics of the spell. He practiced on small objects. Harry knew mastering these spells, especially without a wand, would take time. Lumos, despite its apparent simplicity, demanded a level of concentration and intent that was challenging. The other spells, each with their unique requirements, were even more complex. He was determined, though, understanding that patience was crucial in this journey of learning wandless magic. As he persisted in his practice, Nigel observed, Master Harry, your dedication is commendable. But let us not forget the mind is as important a tool as any spell. It's high time you learned about occlumency. Occlumency? Harry asked, pausing in his spell work. Yes, Nigel began, his voice taking on a more serious tone. Occlumency is the magical discipline of defending the mind against external penetration and influence. It's about controlling your emotions and thoughts, shielding them from those who might seek to pry or manipulate. He then said, it is one of the few defenses against legilimency. But that is not the only benefit of the art. If you master occlumency, you will also have an easier time in wandless magic. Harry, intrigued, leaned in closer. How so? Nigel's voice took on a lecturing tone. Occlumency, master Harry, is about controlling your emotions and thoughts, creating a barrier in your mind. It requires a deep understanding of oneself, a kind of mental discipline that's essential for wandless magic. Your intent must be clear, free of distractions and emotional turbulence. It's a challenging art, but given your knack for wandless magic, I believe you're well suited for it. Harry nodded, absorbing every word. So, if I get better at occlumency, I'll be better at wandless magic too. Exactly, Nigel replied, sounding pleased. The clearer your mind, the stronger your intent. And the more effective your magic. Nigel began to explain the intricacies of occlumency to Harry, his voice taking on the tone of an experienced mentor. Occlumency, Master Harry, is the art of shielding your mind against external intrusion. It's about organizing your thoughts, controlling your emotions, and creating a fortress within your mind. The first step, Nigel continued, is to form a mindscape. This is a mental space where you can visualize and control your thoughts and memories. Imagine it as a room or a series of rooms where each memory, each thought, has its place. Harry listened intently, visualizing the concept. So, I need to organize my memories, like files in a cabinet. Indeed, Nigel replied. But it's more than just organization. It's about understanding and controlling them. You need to be able to retrieve or conceal a memory at will, to be aware of every corner of your mind. Nigel then delved into the defenses against legilimency. To protect against legilimency, which is the magical skill of reading minds, you must fortify your mindscape. Imagine barriers, walls, or any form of protection that resonates with you. The stronger your visualization, the stronger your defense. As Nigel finished, Harry suddenly realized something. Wait, aren't my memories already organized? Because of the technology system. Nigel chuckled. It is, Master Harry. The truth is, you've already passed the first and hardest step of occlumency, creating a mindscape. And you are actually immune to any legilimency attacks due to me and the technology system. But what you have now is akin to buying a safe. You do have a safe, but it doesn't protect anything until you make it yours, he elaborated. You must personalize your defenses, imbue them with your essence. It's not enough to have the structure, you must understand and control it. Think of it as not just having a safe, but knowing its combination and how to change it at will. Harry nodded, absorbing the lesson. So, I need to make my mental defenses truly mine, tailor them to my thoughts and emotions. Exactly, Nigel confirmed. And remember, while the technology system organizes your memories, occlumency will allow you to control and protect them. It's an essential skill, especially for someone who practices wandless magic. Wandless magic relies heavily on intent. The clearer your mind, the more potent your magic. Harry closed his eyes, considering his mindscape. The interface of the technology system appeared in his mind, a virtual screen where he could access any memory or information easily. This was not a design of his own making. If he were to create a mindscape, the only place that came to mind was his cupboard. But that was a part of his life he wanted to leave behind. Now that he had his own room, he wanted nothing to do with that cramped, dark space. Yet, he couldn't think of any other place that resonated with him. I will go with the technology systems design. It is practical and futuristic. I like it, he thought, deciding to embrace the efficiency and modernity of the system. This stage of developing his occlumency skills would not be easy, and Harry knew it would take several months to master. He focused on the screen, in his mind, visualizing the memories and information stored there. He tried to rearrange them, too. Build walls and barriers around sensitive areas. But it was challenging. The memories were deeply ingrained, and controlling them required a level of mental discipline Harry was still developing. After a strenuous mental exercise, Harry took a break and decided to chat with Aunt Petunia. He knew he had to employ more significant tactics to soften her long-standing resentment toward him and the magical world. It was a challenge, but one he was ready to face. As he sat down with his aunt, Harry carefully broached the subject of his mother, Lily. Aunt Petunia, I've been thinking a lot about my mum lately. I wish I knew more about her, he said, watching her reaction closely. Petunia's face remained stoic, her expression revealing nothing of her inner thoughts. There's not much to tell, Harry, she replied dismissively, clearly uncomfortable with the topic. Harry sensed he needed a different approach. He remembered something Nigel had said about appealing to Petunia's emotions. I found this old photo of her, Harry continued, pulling out the picture he had found. She looks so happy. Did she always have that kind of joy about her? Petunia glanced at the photo, her face softening ever so slightly before she quickly masked her emotions. Your mother was always the cheerful one, always finding something to smile about, she said curtly, turning away to hide her vulnerability. Nigel's voice echoed in Harry's mind. You're chipping away at the wall, Master Harry. But remember, it's a fortress built over years of pain and resentment. Harry knew he needed to tread carefully. He decided to employ a tactic Nigel had suggested, connecting Petunia's emotions to his own. I wish I could have known her. I feel like I've missed out on so much. Not knowing my own mother. It's like a part of me is missing. Petunia's response was hesitant, her voice a whisper. She would have loved you very much, Harry. She was always good with children. It was a small concession, but it was more than Harry had hoped for. He realized that Petunia's resentment was deeply rooted, not easily swayed by a few conversations. He needed a more significant tactic, something that would resonate with her on a deeper level. Harry decided to delve into his family's history, to learn more about his mother and her relationship with Petunia. He hoped that understanding their past would give him insights into how to reach his aunt. He spent hours in his makeshift study, poring over old letters, photos, and any scraps of information he could find about Lily and Petunia's childhood. As he researched, Harry discovered stories of two sisters who were once close, sharing secrets and dreams. But as they grew older, their paths diverged. Lily, discovering her magical abilities, and Petunia, feeling left behind. The pain of separation, the envy, the sense of betrayal, all these emotions had festered into the resentment Petunia harbored today. Harry stumbled upon a profound revelation that could potentially unlock the door to Aunt Petunia's hardened heart. While rummaging through an old chest in the attic, he found a photograph and a letter that seemed to be the missing pieces of a complex puzzle. The photo depicted 3 children, Lily, Petunia, and an unknown boy with dark, greasy hair. They appeared close, smiles wide and innocent. The letter, however, was the real jackpot. A response from Albus Dumbledore to Petunia. In it, Dumbledore regretfully informed her that Hogwarts only accepted those with magical abilities, and Petunia, unfortunately, lacked them. Though Dumbledore's words were kind and encouraging, they were of little consolation to Petunia. Harry, with his new, sharper mind, picked up on the subtleties in the letter. Dumbledore's phrases like talent can manifest in many forms, and neither is better than the other, were likely responses to Petunia's expressions of feeling less magical, less special than Lily. It was clear from Dumbledore's words, such as, I am sure your family loves both of you equally, that Petunia harbored deep-seated insecurities about her parents' affection, probably feeling overshadowed by her magically gifted sister. Armed with this new understanding, Harry recognized the magnitude of the emotional chasm he needed to bridge. Aunt Petunia's resentment was rooted in a lifetime of feeling inferior and left out. Changing her perception wouldn't be a simple task. It required a strategy that touched her on a personal level, that acknowledged her pain and validated her feelings. Nigel's voice echoed in Harry's mind, a blend of wit and wisdom. Master Harry, you've unearthed a veritable treasure trove of emotional history. Use it wisely. Remember, the path to understanding is paved with empathy, not just facts. But this was a challenge on another dimension. Harry couldn't simply reveal his knowledge of magic, Hogwarts, or Dumbledore to his aunt. Such a direct approach would shatter the delicate trust he had painstakingly built. He needed to be clever, to bring the subject up incidentally. That's when a possibility dawned on him. Using his newly learned occlumency skills, though still far from mastering them, Harry projected an aura of guilt and fear as he approached Aunt Petunia. Her reaction was immediate, her brow furrowing in concern. "What have you done, boy?" she demanded. Harry's voice quivered convincingly as he replied. I did something freaky, Aunt Petunia." He deliberately used the word freaky, knowing it would capture her attention. Petunia's eyes narrowed. "Don't use that word. Tell me what happened," she insisted, her tone a mix of irritation and curiosity. Looking down, Harry wove his tale. "I was thinking of ways to help you better. I wanted to clean the ceiling, but I couldn't reach. Then something amazing happened. The cloth and sponge, they just levitated on their own and started to clean. I'm sorry, Aunt. I didn't do it on purpose." Harry's story was a gamble, a blend of truth and fabrication. He watched Petunia closely, gauging her reaction. Her expression was a complex tapestry of emotions, disbelief, fear, and a trace of the same resentment that always simmered beneath the surface. Nigel's voice, a subtle blend of encouragement and caution, resonated in Harry's mind. "A bold move, Master Harry. You're walking a fine line between intrigue and fear." Petunia's reaction was swift and sharp. That's not possible. You must have imagined it. Such things don't happen in the real world." Petunia's reaction was swift and sharp. That's not possible. You must have imagined it. Such things don't happen in the real world." Harry looked up, his eyes filled with fear and confusion, a perfect picture of a troubled boy. "But it did happen, Aunt Petunia. I don't understand it either. It's like those stories in Dudley's books, but it's real." Nigel, ever present in his mind, whispered, "Excellent, Harry. You've painted the picture perfectly. Now, let's see how she responds." Petunia paced the room, clearly troubled. "This is nonsense, Harry. There's a logical explanation for everything. You must have used some trick or—" Harry interrupted, "But I didn't. Aunt Petunia. It was like magic." The word magic hung in the air, thick with implications and unspoken history. Petunia stopped pacing, her face a mixture of disbelief and an emotion Harry couldn't quite place. "Magic," she whispered, as if the word itself was a ghost from her past. Nigel's voice was cautious yet encouraging. "You've opened the door, Harry. Now gently push it open." Harry continued, his voice soft. "You know about magic, don't you, Aunt Petunia? You've seen it before, with Mum." Petunia turned sharply, her eyes flashing with a mixture of anger and pain. "Don't talk about your mother. You know nothing about her or what she was involved in." Harry knew he had hit a nerve. He had to proceed with care. "But I want to know, Aunt Petunia. I want to understand why I'm different. Why I can do these things. Did Mum do things like this too?" Petunia seemed to wrestle with her thoughts, torn between her long-held resentment and a hidden, deeper emotion. "Your mother she was a freak, just like you." Harry's occlumency shield shattered like fragile glass as he hissed, "Don't call my mom that." Petunia, taken aback, collapsed onto the couch, her body racked with sobs. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. It's all because of Vernon," she managed through her tears. Harry, seething with anger, was about to unleash a torrent of words. But Nigel's voice halted him. "Now is the perfect time, Master Harry. Control your emotions. She is vulnerable. Use it against her. Let her open up. It is time to learn the truth." Harry took a deep breath, reining in his fury, and sat beside his aunt. "Aunt Petunia, why did you say that about my mother? What did Vernon do?" Petunia, her face stained with tears, struggled to compose herself. It's complicated, Harry. Your mother and I, we were different. And Vernon, he never understood. He made it worse." Harry, sensing the opening he needed, pressed on. "Different how? Aunt Petunia? Because of the magic?" Petunia nodded, a resigned look on her face. Yes, because of the magic. Your mother she was special. But Vernon, he couldn't accept it. He saw it as a threat, something unnatural. Nigel's voice was a beacon in the stormy sea of emotions. Probe further, Harry, gently, but firmly. We need to understand the depth of her feelings. Harry continued, his voice soft but persistent. Did you ever feel the same way, Aunt Petunia, about magic being a threat? Petunia blurted, no, I envied it. Then her hand went to her mouth as if she had revealed too much. Harry, sensing a critical moment, pressed on. You wanted to do the same, so why? Why hated my mother? Why hated me? Petunia's eyes, now swimming with a mix of emotions, darted away from Harry's piercing gaze. It's not that simple, Harry, she began, her voice a tremor of past pains and regrets. Your mother, she had this world. A world I couldn't be part of. And then she left, leaving me behind. Harry's mind raced, trying to piece together the puzzle of his family's past. But why take it out on me? I never knew my parents. I've always just wanted to belong. Petunia sighed, a sound heavy with years of bottled-up emotions. I know, Harry, and I'm sorry, it's just, when I see you, I see her. And it hurts, remembering what I lost. Nigel's voice, a quiet murmur in the back of Harry's mind, chimed in. Delve deeper, Master Harry. There's more beneath the surface. Gently coax it out. Harry took a deep breath, his voice softening. Tell me about her, Aunt Petunia. About my mum. What was she like, really? Petunia looked at Harry, her eyes now a well of unshed tears. She was brilliant, Harry, full of life and laughter. But she was also different. And that difference drove a wedge between us. Harry, encouraged by Petunia's openness, asked gently, different because of her magic? Petunia nodded, her expression a complex tapestry of sadness and nostalgia. Yes, because of her magic. It was a world I couldn't enter, a gift I couldn't share. And when she went to that school, it was like I lost my sister. Nigel's voice was a beacon, guiding Harry through the emotional terrain. You're bridging the gap, Harry. Keep the conversation flowing. Let her open up. Harry pressed on, his curiosity about his mother growing. And my father, James? What did you think of him? Petunia's face hardened, a shadow passing over her features. He was part of that world too. He took your mother away from me, fully. And finally, I resented him for it. Harry understood then. It wasn't just the magic that Petunia resented. It was the loss, the feeling of being left behind, first by her sister and then by the magical world that had claimed her. His father, James, was the embodiment of that world, the final nail in the coffin of their sisterly bond. Nigel, sensing Harry's realization, added, you're peeling back layers of years of resentment, Harry. It's a delicate process. Proceed with care. Harry, his heart aching for the pain his aunt had endured, said softly, I'm sorry, Aunt Petunia. I never knew any of this. I always thought you just hated me for being different. Petunia's gaze softened slightly, a hint of regret in her eyes. I didn't hate you, Harry. I was afraid. Afraid of what you represented. Afraid of losing you too. Harry looked at his aunt's sobbing form, his mind colder and more calculating than ever. He realized he stood at a crossroads. One path led to control, to exploiting Petunia's vulnerability for his benefit. The other, to compassion and understanding, the path his mother, Lily, would have chosen. He could easily manipulate Petunia, bend her will to his own. She deserved it, didn't she, after all their years of neglect and cruelty. But that was not the way of Lily's son. Harry sighed, his decision clear. He stepped towards her and hugged her tightly. I'm sorry, Aunt Petunia. Sorry that you felt abandoned. Petunia stiffened in his embrace, her body racked with years of suppressed emotions. Harry felt her resistance but held on, his embrace a symbol of the bridge he was trying to build. Nigel's voice echoed in Harry's mind, its usual sarcasm softened by a note of approval. Ah, Master Harry, showing a heart as big as your mother's. A wise choice, indeed. But remember, mending bridges with Aunt Petunia will be a task akin to taming a thestral, challenging, and not without its risks. Harry pulled back, looking into Petunia's eyes, which still held a trace of the old resentment. He knew this was just the beginning. He needed to be patient, to employ tactics that resonated with her deeply rooted emotions. Can we talk? Aunt Petunia? About Mum, about magic, about everything, Harry asked, his voice a mix of hope and uncertainty. Petunia, her face still wet with tears, hesitated. I don't know, Harry. It's painful. Harry nodded, understanding the complexity of her emotions. I know it's hard, but I need to know. We need to understand each other better. Petunia seemed to ponder his words, the walls she had built over the years showing cracks of vulnerability. Finally, she nodded slowly, a reluctant agreement to his request. Nigel's voice buzzed in Harry's ear, a reminder of the delicate task ahead. Remember, Harry, your approach must be subtle, yet direct. Draw parallels between her life and yours. Help her see you not as the embodiment of a world she was excluded from, but as a kindred spirit, equally lost and searching for a place to belong. Harry sat down next to her, choosing his words carefully. Aunt Petunia, you said you were afraid of losing me too. Afraid of what I represented. But I've always just been Harry, just a boy who wanted a family. Petunia looked away, a conflict of emotions playing across her face. I know, Harry, but your world, it took my sister away. I couldn't bear the thought of losing you to it as well. Petunia looked away, a conflict of emotions playing across her face. I know, Harry, but your world, it took my sister away. I couldn't bear the thought of losing you to it as well. Harry's mind worked quickly, weaving a narrative that might bridge the emotional gap between them. But that world isn't just about magic and wonders, Aunt Petunia. It's also about loss and loneliness. I lost my parents to that world. And in a way, I lost you and Uncle Vernon and Dudley too. Petunia's gaze returned to Harry, a flicker of understanding in her eyes. Harry pressed on, his voice growing firmer. I'm not just Lily's son or James's son. I'm your nephew too. And I've always wanted to be part of this family, in every way. The room was silent for a moment, the weight of decades of unspoken truths hanging heavy in the air. Petunia's face remained stern, but her eyes betrayed a softening, a glimmer of empathy for the boy who had grown up under her roof. Petunia finally spoke, her voice low and hesitant. I didn't know you felt that way, Harry. I thought you hated us for how we treated you. Harry shook his head. I won't lie, Aunt Petunia. It's been hard, really hard, but hate, no. I've always just wanted to understand. To be understood. Petunia sighed, a long, deep sigh that seemed to release years of pent-up emotions. Harry, I don't know if I can ever understand your world, but maybe I can try to understand you. It was a small concession, but Harry knew it was a significant one. He smiled, a genuine, warm smile. That's all I ask, Aunt Petunia. That's all I've ever wanted. Nigel's voice buzzed in Harry's ear, a hint of his usual dryness returning. Well played, Master Harry. You've navigated the treacherous waters of familial politics with the skill of a seasoned diplomat. Ignoring the chatty AI, Harry, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts and strategies, turned back to Aunt Petunia. His finger subtly illuminated with the soft glow of a Lumos spell, a simple yet effective display of magic. Petunia's eyes widened in amazement, a mix of fear and fascination etched on her face. How? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Harry shook his head, feigning confusion and innocence. I don't know. It just happened, like I felt I could do it. His words were chosen carefully, designed to intrigue rather than alarm. Petunia, her expression a complex mosaic of emotions, seemed to teeter on the edge of a revelation. It's like your mother, she murmured, distant look in her eyes. Harry sensed an opening, a crack in the armor she had built over their years. Petunia, for the first time, appeared to be considering stepping into the world she had been denied access to as a child, a world that Harry, her nephew, was inadvertently offering her a key to. However, the road ahead was fraught with challenges. Petunia was no naive child to be easily swayed by a simple display of magic. Her years of bitterness and her strong, rooted views on the magical world would not crumble overnight. Harry knew he had to tread carefully, weaving a narrative that appealed to her deepest emotions while strategically downplaying the elements that might reignite her fears and prejudices. Remember, Master Harry, Nigel's voice echoed in his mind, subtlety is your ally. You're dealing with years of ingrained beliefs and hurt. It's like trying to brew a delicate potion under a cauldron that's been simmering with resentment for decades. Harry nodded slightly, acknowledging Nigel's counsel. turning his attention back to his aunt. He said softly, I want to know more about this. About Mum, about the magic. But I need your help, Aunt Petunia. Petunia hesitated, her gaze flitting between Harry and the faint light on his finger. She was clearly torn, the desire to understand warring with her long-held aversion. Finally, she sighed, a sound that seemed to carry the weight of her internal struggle. I don't know, Harry. It's a sore subject. Your mother and I, we were different. Harry shook his head, a gentle firmness in his voice. You were not different, Auntie. It was the first time he had used such an affectionate term for her, and Petunia visibly flinched, caught off guard. You were sisters. And magical blood, it runs in your veins too. Your blood runs in my veins. How can we be any different? Petunia's face was a mask of conflict, her eyes flickering with a tumult of emotions. She opened her mouth, then closed it, struggling with words that refused to come. Finally, she looked away, her voice barely audible. It's not the same, Harry. Magic. It separated us. Harry leaned forward, his voice earnest. But it doesn't have to separate us, Auntie. We can learn from each other. Maybe there's more to magic than you think. Maybe there's more to me. Petunia met his gaze, her expression softening slightly. Harry, I don't understand all of this. It's been years of trying to forget, to put it all behind me. Nigel's voice resonated. In Harry's mind, a blend of encouragement and strategy. Now, Master Harry, the iron is hot. Strike with precision. Show her the magic, but in a way that's familiar, comforting. Harry nodded. Inwardly, taking Nigel's advice. He extended his hand, letting the lumos glow brighten. Look, Auntie, this isn't dark or scary. It's just light. Mum could do this too. Maybe you can as well. Petunia's eyes widened at the glow, a hint of fear and curiosity mingling in her expression. I can't do that, Harry. I'm not like your mother. I'm not. Harry interrupted gently. But you are like her in so many ways. You're her sister, and maybe, in some ways, you can be magical too. Not with spells or wands, but with understanding, with accepting me, with accepting part of her that's still alive in me. Petunia looked at Harry, a complex mix of skepticism and longing in her eyes. I don't know if I can, Harry. It's been so long, and so much has happened. Give it a chance, Aunt Petunia, Harry urged softly. For me, for Mum, for yourself. Let's discover this together. It doesn't have to be a world apart. It can be a world shared. Petunia hesitated, a silent war raging within her. Finally, she let out a deep, resigned sigh. All right, Harry, we can try. But I can't promise anything. Harry nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. That's all I'm asking for. A chance to try.